60 seconds. That's all the warning they gave her before the missiles would fly. A lone fighter jet, unmarked and unidentified, cutting through restricted airspace toward the most heavily defended carrier strike group in the Pacific. No transponder, no radio contact, no fear. Inside the Combat Information Center, fingers hovered over fire control panels. Two FA-18 Super Hornets screamed upward, their targeting systems locked and ready. The pilot was either suicidal or insane, flying with surgical precision through corridors that shouldn't exist on any map. Then she spoke. One word, 2 syllables, and the entire fleet held its breath. Because the voice that just stopped a war belonged to the woman who'd been dead for 3 years. If you want to see how a ghost becomes a legend, stay with me until the very end. Hit that like button, drop a comment telling me what city you're watching from. I want to see how far this story travels. Now, let's begin. The morning came wrapped in deception. It arrived quietly over the Pacific, all soft gold and gentle waves, the kind of dawn that made sailors forget the ocean could kill them. Aboard the USS Theodore Kane, a Nimitz-class carrier cutting through international waters 200 miles west of Guam, the daily rhythm had already begun. Flight ops, system checks, coffee strong enough to strip paint. Lieutenant Commander Marcus Hayden stood in the Carrier Air Traffic Control Center, watching 3 screens at once while nursing his 3rd cup of something that used to be coffee. 28 years old, Yale graduate, top of his class at Pensacola. He'd earned his position through perfect scores and flawless execution, and he wore that precision like armor. Contact bearing 270, range 40 nautical miles, the radar operator called out. Petty Officer Chen, 19 and still jumpy on every shift, his voice just a fraction too high. Hayden didn't even glance up. Tanker? Negative signature match. Too small. Too fast. Now Hayden looked. The blip on the screen moved with purpose, cutting through a flight corridor that technically didn't exist. Not on civilian charts, not on most military ones. Whoever was flying knew things they shouldn't. Get me IFF. Trying, sir. Transponder's off. Hayden's jaw tightened. Hail them on guard frequency. The radio operator, Senior Chief Ramirez, 15 years in, calm as stone, keyed the international emergency channel. Unidentified aircraft bearing 270, you are entering restricted military airspace. Identify yourself immediately. Static. The blip kept coming, maintaining exactly 420 knots. Not racing, not hesitating, deliberate. Sir, range now 35 miles, still no response. Hayden reached for the internal comm. Bridge CATCC. We have an unidentified aircraft inbound, no transponder, not responding to hails. Recommend we go to Air Defense Condition 2. The response came from Commander Sarah Voss, the ship's air operations officer, her Boston accent sharp even through the speaker. You're sure it's not one of ours playing games? All our birds are accounted for. This isn't ours. A pause, then, stand by. 30 seconds later, the 1MC loudspeaker crackled throughout the ship. Air Defense Condition 2. Set air. Defense Condition 2. All hands man your battle stations. The gentle morning shattered. Across the carrier, organized chaos erupted. Hatches sealed. Damage control teams scrambled. Gun mounts traversed toward the sky. Deep in the ship's Combat Information Center, the tactical action officer stared at the same blip Hayden was watching, making calculations that could end in fire. On the flight deck, 2 FA-18F Super Hornets sat on the catapults, already prepped for a routine patrol. Now their pilots ran harder, helmets under their arms, checking switches they could operate blind. Lieutenant Jake Reaper Morrison, 31, cocky and skilled enough to earn it, dropped into his cockpit with practiced ease. His weapons systems officer, Lieutenant Amy Torch Kowalski, settled in behind him. Talk to me, Torch. What are we looking at? Single contact, unidentified, heading straight for us like we're not here. Maybe they don't know we're here. They know. The catapult officer gave the signal. Morrison slammed the throttles forward, felt 23 tons of aircraft punch him backward as the catapult fired. 3 seconds later, he was airborne, climbing hard into the golden morning, his wingman right beside him. Strike, Reaper flight is airborne, requesting vector to intercept. Hayden's voice came back clean and professional. Reaper, vector 270, Angels 12. Your target is 28 miles out, speed 420 knots, altitude 11,000 feet. Copy. Going burner. The Super Hornets lit their afterburners, and the sky screamed. Inside CATCC, Hayden watched the geometry change, his interceptors accelerating, the unknown contact maintaining course and speed, the distance collapsing. "Sir, should I keep trying to raise them?" Ramirez asked. "Every 30 seconds. Keep it professional." Unidentified aircraft, you are approaching a United States Navy carrier strike group. You are ordered to turn away immediately and identify yourself. Nothing. Hayden felt the weight of it settling on his shoulders. Procedures existed for this. Clear, tested, legal. But procedures assumed rational actors, and nothing about this felt rational. 20 miles. Commander Voss appeared at his shoulder, coffee in hand, face calm in that way that meant she was 3 steps ahead of everyone else. "What do you think, Marcus?" "I think somebody's testing us." "Chinese?" "They usually send 6. Russians like to come in pairs. This is..." He shook his head. "This feels different." "Different how?" "Personal." She studied the screen, watching the blip that refused to acknowledge their existence. "Reaper's going to have visual soon." "Yes, ma'am." "Hope they're ready for whatever they find." "Nah." 15,000 feet above the Pacific, Morrison brought his fighter into a wide arc, letting his radar paint the target. Torch ran the signatures, cross-checking against every known aircraft in the database. "Single engine, light fighter, radar cross-section suggests..." She paused. "Jake, this thing's old." "How old?" "F-16 configuration, maybe Viper Block 40. Morrison frowned inside his helmet. An F-16 out here made no sense. Not current Gen 1s, and definitely not 40-year-old airframes. The closest Air Force base was Anderson in Guam, and they didn't operate Vipers. "You sure?" "Signatures classic, single intake, tail configuration, size matches. But Jake..." "What?" "It's flying like it's brand new." He pushed the throttles forward, closing the distance. The F-16 held steady on course, not evading, not acknowledging. Either the pilot was asleep or supremely confident. "Reaper, strike. Target is now 15 miles out. You are cleared to close and identify." "Roger that, going for visual." Sunlight poured through the canopy as Morrison brought his Super Hornet alongside the unknown aircraft, matching speed and altitude. At this range, he could make out details. Weathered paint, no national markings, canopy tinted dark enough to hide the pilot. But it was the way it flew that made his chest tighten. No drift, no overcorrection. The kind of precision that came from 10,000 hours in combat no one talked about. "Strike, Reaper has visual. Confirmed F-16 Viper configuration, no visible markings, pilot not responding to hand signals. This bird's flying like it's on rails." "Understood. Stand by." Morrison held position off the Viper's right wing, watching, waiting. The pilot inside that darkened canopy hadn't so much as glanced his way. "They're not scared of us, Torch." "No, they're really not." In CATCC, Hayden made the call he'd hoped to avoid. "Sir, recommend we go weapons tight. This aircraft is not deviating and we're running out of ocean." Voss nodded once. "Do it. But Marcus, no mistakes." "No, ma'am." He keyed the radio to Reaper's frequency. "Reaper, you are authorized weapons tight. If that aircraft does not comply with the next warning, you are cleared to engage." Morrison's voice came back flat, professional, empty of everything except training. "Copy. Weapons tight. Ready to engage on your command." Hayden switched to the guard frequency one more time, letting every ounce of authority bleed into his words. "Unknown aircraft, this is your final warning. You have 60 seconds to turn away from this carrier strike group or we will engage. You will be fired upon. Acknowledge immediately." The seconds crawled. 55, 50. On the flight deck, Sea Sparrow launchers tracked the sky. Deep in the ship, the Aegis weapon system cycled through firing solutions. Hundreds of eyes watched screens, waited for orders, felt the tension climb toward something irreversible. 40 seconds. Morrison armed his weapons, heard the tone change in his headset as the AIM-120AMRAAM came online. Strike Reaper. Weapons hot. Locked and tracking. 30 seconds. Hayden's hand hovered over the comm panel. One word from him and this ended in fire and wreckage. But something gnawed at him, something in the way that Viper flew, not like a threat, but like a message. 20 seconds. Ramirez's hand was steady on the microphone, ready to give the final warning. Chen's wasn't, his fingers white-knuckled on the edge of the console. The air in C, ATCC, tasted like copper and adrenaline. 15 seconds. Commander Voss stood perfectly still beside Hayden, watching not the screen but his face, trusting him to make the call that would define his career. 10 seconds. Morrison's finger rested on the trigger, muscle memory and training aligned with intent. One squeeze, 1 second. The math was simple. 5 seconds. Hayden opened his mouth to give the order. And then the radio crackled. Not on guard frequency, not on any frequency they'd been using. This was something older, a tactical channel that shouldn't have been active, shouldn't have been known. The voice that came through was female, calm, with the kind of quiet authority that stopped rooms mid-breath. Ghost Viper. 2 words. That's all it took. The effect was instantaneous. Ramirez dropped the microphone. Chen's hands froze on the console. Hayden felt the air leave his lungs like he'd been gut-punched. Commander Voss went absolutely white. "What did she just say?" Morrison's voice cracked across the radio, all professional composure gone. "Strike. Did I just hear?" "Stand by." Hayden's own voice sounded distant, disconnected from his body. He looked at Voss. "Ma'am?" She was staring at the screen like it showed a ghost, which, in a way, it did. "That's not possible," she whispered. "Ma'am, I know what you need." Voss grabbed the internal comm. "CIC Air Ops. Suspend engagement order. Repeat, suspend engagement. Reaper flight, do not fire. Acknowledge." "This is Reaper, not firing. But Strike, I need to know what the hell is happening." Hayden found his voice, though it still didn't feel like his. "Reaper, maintain escort position. Do not, I say again, do not engage unless fired upon." "Copy." "Christ, Torch, did you hear that call sign?" In the back seat, Kowalski's hands were shaking on her instruments. Everyone in the Pacific Fleet just heard that call sign. Because Ghost Viper wasn't just a call sign. It was a legend. A myth whispered in training squadrons and classified briefing rooms. Stories about missions that officially never happened, rescues that defied physics, a pilot who flew into places where aircraft went to die. And came back. Always came back. Until 3 years ago, when she didn't. The official story was vague. Training accident. Crashed into the sea during a classified exercise. No body recovered. No funeral. Just a redacted file and a folded flag delivered to a family that wouldn't talk about it. Except now that voice was on their radio, and she was flying toward them like she owned the sky. Voss was already moving, yanking open a classified filing cabinet, pulling out a folder marked with enough security clearances to make Hayden's head spin. She flipped through pages, scanning, searching, her hand steady despite the shock written across her face. "There," she stabbed a finger at a document. Contingency Protocol Echo 7. In the event of authentication code, Ghost Viper. All defensive actions are to be suspended pending verification through NAVAIR special programs. Special programs? Hayden had never heard of it. Above your clearance. Above mine too, probably. She grabbed a red phone, actual landline, encrypted to a level that made satellite links look like children's toys. "Get me Admiral Carver. I don't care if he's in the shower. Now." While she waited, the Viper continued its approach. 5 miles out now. Close enough that people on the flight deck could see it with the naked eye. A tiny silver speck against the blue, escorted by 2 Super Hornets that had gone from hunters to honor guard in the span of 2 words. Morrison kept his position off the Viper's wing, professional despite the earthquake happening in his head. "Strike. Target is making no aggressive moves. Flight profile is... it's a carrier approach." "Say again, Reaper." "She's lining up for landing. Jesus, she's coming aboard. On the flight deck, the landing signal officers had heard the radio traffic. Chief Warrant Officer Tim Paddles Chen, no relation to the radar operator, stood on his platform, pickle switch in hand, trying to process what was about to happen. His assistant, Petty Officer Rodriguez, stood beside him, eyes wide. Chief, are we really going to bring her aboard? If that's who I think it is? Paddles' voice was quiet, reverent. Son, we're going to roll out the red carpet. Tim, Admiral Richard Carver, commander of Carrier Strike Group 5, was indeed not in the shower. He was in his quarters aboard the destroyer USS Wayne, reviewing deployment schedules and hating the coffee, when his encrypted line rang. He knew from the ring pattern it was serious. Carver. Admiral, this is Commander Voss, Air Ops on the Kane. We have a situation that requires your immediate attention. Carver set down his coffee cup. Voss didn't spook easily. Talk to me. Sir, we have an unidentified F-16 approaching the carrier. It failed to respond to multiple hail attempts. We were seconds from engaging when the pilot authenticated with Ghost Viper protocol. The coffee cup would have fallen if Carver hadn't already set it down. You're certain of the authentication? The call sign was transmitted on the correct tactical frequency. But sir, Ghost Viper was declared KYA 3 years ago. I know exactly when Ghost Viper was declared KYA, Commander. I was the one who wrote the letter. Carver was already moving, grabbing his jacket, heading for CIC. Do not engage that aircraft. Do you understand me? No matter what happens, you do not fire on that plane. Sir, what if... There is no what if, Commander. If that pilot says she's Ghost Viper, then God help us all. She probably is. And if she wanted us dead, we'd already be swimming. He killed the connection and burst into CIC, where his own tactical team was tracking the same contact. Status. Aircraft is 3 miles out, sir. Descending. Looks like she's coming aboard the Kane. Carver grabbed the ship-to-ship comm. Kane, this is Strike Group Actual. You are authorized to recover that aircraft. Repeat. You are authorized to recover. Voss's voice came back, steady now, locked into professional mode. Understood, Admiral. Initiating recovery. Carver stared at the screen showing the blip approaching his flagship, and he thought about classified files he'd read 6 years ago. Missions in places that didn't exist. Rescues that shouldn't have succeeded. A pilot who flew like physics was optional. He'd met her once, briefly, at a classified briefing. She'd been quiet, focused, with eyes that had seen things he couldn't imagine. When she spoke, admirals listened. Sir? His TAO was watching him. Do we know who this is? Carver's voice was quiet. Son, you're about to meet the pilot who rewrote the book on modern air combat. Everything you learned at Top Gun. She did it first, did it better, and did it in places we can't acknowledge exist. Is she friendly? She better be. Because if she's not, this strike group just became a shooting gallery. Morrison held formation as the Viper began its descent toward the Kane. The approach was textbook. No, better than textbook. It was the kind of approach instructors showed in training videos, the kind that made young pilots think carrier landings looked easy. Paddles, Reaper. I've got her visual all the way down. She knows what she's doing. Roger, Reaper. We've got the ball. She's looking good. The Viper descended through 800 feet, then 600, wings rock steady despite the wind shear that made carrier approaches a daily knife fight. Paddles watched through his binoculars, making minute corrections with his voice. Ghost Viper, Paddles, you're on glide slope, looking good. Little power. The jet adjusted instantly, perfectly. That's it. Hold what you've got. Easy now. On the deck, every crew member not actively working had found a reason to be topside. Word had spread. Someone important was landing. Someone from before. Someone they had only heard about in stories that got wilder with every retelling. The air boss, Captain Mike Hammer Rodriguez, stood in primary flight control, watching the approach through the tower windows. 26 years in the Navy. 4 carrier commands. He'd seen everything. Except this. Mini-boss, he said to his assistant, when was the last time we recovered a Viper? Never, sir. This platform's never operated F-16. That's what I thought. He keyed the 5MC. All hands, we are recovering an unexpected guest. Flight deck, give her your best show. This one's for the history books. The Viper crossed the ramp at exactly the right altitude, exactly the right speed. The tailhook kissed the deck and grabbed the 3-wire, the perfect wire, the one that said the pilot knew exactly what they were doing. The aircraft stopped in less than 2 seconds, arrested cables singing with tension. For a moment, nothing moved. Then the canopy began to open. Hayden left CATCC and headed for the flight deck, taking ladders 2 at a time. Commander Voss was right behind him, the classified folder under her arm. By the time they reached the deck, a crowd had formed. Respectful distance, but everyone wanted to see. The pilot who climbed out of that F-16 was not what most of them expected. She was maybe 5'6", lean, moving with the kind of economy that spoke of 1,000 combat sorties. Flight suit weathered but immaculate. No patches except one, a simple gray ghost over a coiled Viper, the unofficial insignia of a unit that didn't officially exist. She removed her helmet, and Hayden heard someone gasp. Captain Sarah Ghost Chen. 38 years old, though she looked ageless in the way people did when stress and purpose refined them down to pure function. Black hair pulled back tight, eyes that missed nothing. She'd been 22 when she earned her wings, 24 when she made her first classified kill, 28 when she pulled off a rescue in denied territory that the Pentagon still wouldn't discuss, 31 when she rewrote the tactical manual for deep penetration strikes, 35 when she officially died. Now she stood on the deck of the Theodore Kane, very much alive, and scanned the crowd with those unreadable eyes. Commander Voss approached first, came to attention. Captain Chen. Commander. The voice matched the radio, calm, authoritative, somehow gentle despite its power. Sorry for the dramatic entrance, couldn't risk the usual channels. Ma'am, we nearly shot you down. A small smile. I know. You followed protocol perfectly. That's exactly what you were supposed to do. Morrison had landed his Super Hornet and jogged over, Kowalski right behind him. He stopped 3 feet away, looking like he'd just seen his childhood hero come to life, which, in a sense, he had. Captain Chen, I'm Lieutenant Morrison. I was the intercept lead. She turned those eyes on him, and he felt weighed, measured, assessed in a heartbeat. You locked me up at 12 miles. Good reaction time. But you hesitated at 8. Morrison blinked. How did you? I could feel your radar shift. You started to doubt. She stepped closer. Never doubt, Lieutenant. If you decide to shoot, shoot. If you decide to wait, wait. The middle ground gets people killed. Yes, ma'am. She nodded once, then looked past him to where Kowalski stood. Your WSO kept her cool better than you did. Listen to her. Kowalski flushed, standing straighter. Thank you, ma'am. Admiral Carver's helicopter was already inbound, racing from the Wayne. It touched down on the far side of the deck, and Carver emerged at a pace that wasn't quite running, but suggested great urgency. He crossed the deck, the crowd parting, and stopped in front of Sarah Chen. For a long moment, they just looked at each other. Then Carver did something that made every jaw drop. He saluted. A full, proper, respectful salute. From a rear admiral to a captain who'd been dead for 3 years. She returned it with equal precision. Admiral Carver, good to see you again. Captain Chen. His voice was rough with something that might have been emotion. When they told me you were dead, I spent 6 months trying to confirm it. The files were sealed at levels I couldn't reach. That was the point. And now? Her expression shifted, the calm cracking just enough to show steel underneath. Now we have a problem. One that required me to come back from the dead to fix. Carver glanced around at the assembled crew, all listening, all recording this moment in their memories. We should take this below. Agreed. But Admiral... She looked at Morrison, at the assembled pilots, at the flight deck crew watching with wide eyes. They deserved to know some of it. They were ready to do their duty. That counts. Carver nodded slowly. Conference room, 15 minutes. Bring your flight leads and your CAG. As the crowd began to disperse, Hayden found himself standing near the F-16. Up close, he could see details. The worn paint, the modifications that shouldn't exist, the engine that purred like a perfectly tuned instrument despite looking ancient. She's beautiful, isn't she? He turned. Sarah Chen stood beside him, running a hand along the aircraft's fuselage with something approaching affection. "Ma'am, if you don't mind my asking, why this bird? It's not exactly current gen." "Because this bird and I have an understanding." She tapped the cockpit. "We've kept each other alive through things that should have killed us both. You don't abandon that kind of loyalty." "The files say you died in this plane." "The files say a lot of things." She met his eyes. "Most of them are lies designed to keep you safe. You're Lieutenant Commander Hayden, right? CATCC?" "Yes, ma'am." "You made the right calls today. Clean, intercept, professional warnings, proper escalation of force. Your crew is well trained." "Thank you, ma'am, but you want to know why I'm here?" She turned to face him fully. "Commander, what do you know about Operation Phantom Wire?" Hayden shook his head. "Never heard of it." "Good. That means it's still classified." She glanced toward where Carver was waiting. "You will soon, though. And when you do, you're going to wish I'd stayed dead." With that, she walked away, leaving Hayden standing beside a ghost aircraft, trying to process how his routine morning had turned into something out of a spy novel. The flag conference room aboard the Kane was designed for a dozen people, 20 packed in, standing room only. Every squadron commander, every department head. The CAG, Commander Jester Valdez, sat at the table's head, looking like he'd aged 5 years in the last hour. Admiral Carver stood at the front, Captain Sarah Chen beside him. "All right," Carver began. "I know you all have questions. I'm going to answer what I can, but understand, most of this is still classified at levels that will get you court-martialed for discussing at the O Club." He gestured to Sarah. "Captain Chen, you have the floor." She stepped forward and the room went silent. 3 years ago, I was declared killed in action during a training exercise. That was a cover story. The truth is I volunteered for an operation so classified that fewer than 20 people in the entire Department of Defense knew it existed. She paused, letting that sink in. "I went dark. Deep black, operating in regions where American presence is denied against threats we officially don't acknowledge." Morrison raised a hand. "Ma'am, what kind of threats?" "The kind that keep admirals awake at night, Lieutenant." She clicked a remote, and a screen behind her lit up with a satellite image, blurry, enhanced, showing what looked like an island facility. "For the last 3 years, I've been tracking a rogue weapons development program. Advanced anti-ship systems, new generation cruise missiles, electronic warfare platforms that could blind an entire carrier strike group." Murmurs rippled through the room. 6 weeks ago, I confirmed they're ready for deployment. 4 weeks ago, I identified the target. She clicked again. The screen showed their current position in the Pacific. Strike Group 5, this strike group. The murmurs died. "They're planning to test their new toys on you, all of you, and then use the data to refine the systems for wider deployment." Carver's voice cut through the shock. "When?" "Within 72 hours. Maybe less." Sarah's face was grim. "I came back because you need to know what you're facing, and because I'm the only one who knows where their command node is located." Jester leaned forward. "Can we call for support? Get additional assets in theater?" "By the time they arrive, it'll be too late, and any large-scale movement would tip our hand. They're watching. They know this strike group's schedule, your patrol patterns, your response protocols." "How?" Hayden asked. Sarah's expression darkened. "Because someone on the inside gave it to them." The temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. "You're saying we have a leak," Voss said slowly, "on this strike group." "I'm saying you have a traitor. Someone feeding real-time intelligence to people who want to turn this fleet into a demonstration of American vulnerability." Sarah's eyes swept the room. "Which means we can't trust normal communications. Can't rely on standard procedures. Can't assume anything is secure." Commander Valdez stood up. "Captain, with respect, you're asking us to accept that we're about to be attacked. We can't call for help, and someone in our own ranks is helping the enemy. That's a hell of a claim." "It is." Sarah reached into her flight suit and pulled out a small drive. "This contains everything I've gathered over 3 years. Intercepts, photos, financial records, and the identity of at least one asset I can prove is compromised." She slid it across the table to Carver. "Sir, I suggest you review this in private. What you do with it after is your call." Carver picked up the drive like it might explode. And you? What's your role now? Now? Sarah's smile was cold, sharp, dangerous. Now I do what I do best. I go hunting. The meeting broke up 30 minutes later, but the shock lingered. Hayden walked the passageways in a daze, trying to reconcile the quiet morning with the revelation that his ship might be a target, that somewhere in these bulkheads was someone selling them out. He found himself on Vulture's Row, the observation area overlooking the flight deck, watching as Sarah's F-16 was towed to a maintenance bay. Even from here he could see it was different, modifications that suggested capabilities no standard Viper should have. "Quite a day, Commander." He turned. Sarah stood beside him, hands in her pockets, watching her aircraft with that same quiet affection. "Ma'am, I've been trying to wrap my head around this. A ghost comes back from the dead, tells us we're about to be attacked, says we have a traitor aboard. It's a lot." "It is. How do you know? About the traitor?" She was quiet for a moment. When she spoke, her voice was softer, almost sad. "Because I used to be friends with them, flew with them, trusted them with my life." She turned to look at him. "That's the worst part, Commander. It's never a stranger. It's always someone you know." "Can I ask who?" "You can ask, but I won't tell you, not yet. Because the moment I do, word will spread, and our traitor will run. I need them confident, comfortable, thinking they're safe." And then, her smile returned, cold as Arctic wind. "Then I remind them why Ghost Viper became a legend." Below them, maintenance crews swarmed her aircraft, running diagnostics, checking systems. Sarah watched them work with critical eyes. "That bird's been through hell with me," she said. "Syrian air defenses, Iranian coastal batteries, Chinese electronic warfare nets. It's held together with luck and spite at this point. Why not upgrade? Get something newer?" "Because newer means networked. Networked means trackable. This girl?" She nodded toward the Viper. "She's analog where it counts. No satellite uplinks to hack, no GPS to spoof. Just me, the stick, and the throttles. Old school?" "Sounds lonely." It was. She looked at him with those ancient eyes. 3 years, Commander. 3 years of flying solo missions into places where capture meant worse than death. No backup, no extraction plan. Just the mission and the hope that I'd live long enough to complete it. "Why?" The question came out before Hayden could stop it. "Why volunteer for that?" Sarah was silent for so long he thought she wouldn't answer. Then, "Because someone had to. Because I had the skills and the clearance and the crazy to pull it off. And because—" She paused. "Because I'd seen what these weapons could do. In simulations, in projections. A carrier strike group isn't just ships and planes, Commander. It's 5,000 souls. 5,000 people who trust their leaders to keep them safe." She met his eyes. "I couldn't let them die without trying to stop it. Well, even if it meant dying yourself? Especially then." The weight of that hung between them, heavy and profound. "I have one more question, ma'am." "Shoot." "The name, Ghost Viper. How'd you get it?" A real smile this time, small but genuine. "That's a story for another time, Commander. One that involves too much tequila, a bar in Djibouti, and a very angry camel." She pushed off the railing. "Right now I need to prep. We've got 72 hours, maybe less, and a lot of work to do. What do you need from me? Keep doing what you're doing. Train your people. Trust your instincts. And when the time comes—" She turned back and her eyes held something fierce and unbreakable. "When the time comes, don't hesitate. The enemy is counting on your doubt. Prove them wrong." She walked away, leaving Hayden alone on Vulture's Row, watching the sun climb higher over the Pacific, painting the water golden red. Somewhere out there, a threat was moving. Somewhere in this ship, a traitor was watching. And somewhere between the sea and sky, a ghost had returned to settle accounts. The gentle morning was gone. What came next would be written in fire and fury. The war room deep in the Kane's belly smelled like coffee, sweat, and barely controlled panic. Admiral Carver sat alone at the steel table, the small data drive in front of him like a loaded gun. He'd dismissed his staff 20 minutes ago. Some things you didn't share until you understood exactly how deep the knife had been buried in your back. He plugged the drive into an air-gapped laptop. No network connection, No wireless, nothing that could leak. The screen flickered to life. What he saw in the first 30 seconds made his hands shake. Financial transactions, bank accounts in the Cayman Islands, encrypted communications traced back to this strike group, and photos. Dozens of photos showing classified patrol routes, maintenance schedules, and tactical deployments, all stamped with metadata proving they'd been taken from inside the fleet. But it was the name attached to the main account that made his blood run cold. Commander Robert Slapshot Mallory, CAG, of Carrier. Air Wing 11. 20-year veteran. 3 combat deployments. A man Carver had personally recommended for promotion twice. A man he'd trusted with the lives of every pilot in the air wing. Carver sat back, feeling the weight of it crush down on his shoulders. Not just betrayal, strategic catastrophe. The CAG knew everything: flight schedules, defense postures, radar coverage gaps, response protocols. He'd handed the enemy a blueprint for killing them all. The admiral reached for his encrypted phone, then stopped. Who could he call? If Mallory was compromised, who else might be? The conspiracy could run deeper, tentacles reaching into places Carver couldn't see. His hand moved to a different phone. The red one. Direct line to PACOM headquarters in Hawaii. But even as he lifted the receiver, Sarah Chen's words echoed in his mind. Any large-scale movement would tip our hand. They're watching. He set the phone down. For the first time in his 30-year career, Rear Admiral Richard Carver felt completely alone. A knock at the door made him jump. "Come!" Sarah entered, closing the door behind her. She'd changed out of her flight suit into a nondescript Navy working uniform. No rank insignia, no name tape, nothing to identify her. Ghost in more than just name. "You've seen it," she said. Not a question. Mallory. The name tasted like poison. "How long have you known?" 6 weeks. Took me 3 months before that to trace the money properly. She pulled out a chair and sat across from him. "I'm sorry, Admiral. I know you trusted him. We flew together in the Gulf, saved his ass over Basra when his engine quit." Carver's voice was hollow. "How much did they pay him?" $2.3 million, spread across 4 accounts. But it wasn't just money. Sarah slid a photograph across the table. His daughter, Emily. She's doing a semester abroad in Singapore. These people made it clear: cooperate or she disappears. Carver stared at the photo of a smiling 20-year-old girl, oblivious to the fact her father had sold out thousands of lives to keep her safe. The anger in his chest mixed with something uglier: understanding. "What would you have done?" Sarah asked quietly. "If it was someone you loved?" "I don't know." And that was the truth. But he still made the choice, and now we're all paying for it. "He doesn't know I'm back. That's our advantage." Sarah leaned forward. "Right now, he thinks he's safe. Thinks his intelligence is still flowing undetected. We can use that." "How?" "Feed him bad information, make him report false positions, fake maintenance issues, ghost vulnerabilities. Lead them into a trap instead of an ambush." Carver considered it. The tactical logic was sound, but there was a human cost neither of them was acknowledging. "When this is over, he goes to Leavenworth." "If we survive, yes." "And his daughter?" Sarah's expression hardened. "I already have people moving her. Quiet extraction, no drama. She'll be on a military transport to Okinawa within 12 hours. Once she's safe, Mallory loses his leverage and becomes desperate. Yes, desperate men do stupid things. I'm counting on it." Sarah stood, pacing the small room like a caged predator. "Admiral, we have 60 hours, maybe less. I need to know you're with me on this. Because what comes next, it's going to get ugly." Carver looked at the drive, at the evidence of betrayal, at the ghost who'd come back from the dead to save them. The choice wasn't really a choice at all. "What do you need?" 40 feet above them, in the pilot ready room, Lieutenant Morrison sat with his squadron, trying to brief a routine patrol that felt anything but routine. The room was packed. 14 pilots, 7 WSOs, all watching him with varying degrees of skepticism and curiosity. Word had spread fast, Ghost Viper was back, and she'd brought a nightmare with her. "All right, listen up." Morrison clicked to the first slide. "Standard cap, 2-hour cycle, We're maintaining air superiority over the strike group while... Is it true? Lieutenant Danny Cowboy Chen interrupted. Not the radar operator Chen, different guy, same unfortunate coincidence of common surnames. About the attack? Morrison paused. The official word was need to know, and these pilots didn't need to know. But they also weren't stupid. What have you heard? That we're targets, that someone's planning to light us up with new weapons we can't defend against, that Ghost Viper came back to warn us. Cowboy leaned forward. Is any of that true? Every eye in the room locked on Morrison. He felt the weight of their trust, their fear, their need for honest answers. Yes. The simple admission hit like a shockwave. Pilots shifted in their seats. A few exchanged glances. Torch, sitting in the back, closed her eyes. When? Someone asked. We don't know exactly. Soon. Are we calling for backup? Can't. Not without tipping our hand. Morrison set down the remote. Look, I don't have all the details, but what I do know is this. We're going to face something bad. Something designed specifically to kill carrier strike groups, and we're going to face it with what we have. Which is what, exactly? Lieutenant Rachel Vixen Park asked. What do we have that can stop advanced anti-ship missiles? We have Ghost Viper. The room went quiet. She's one person, Vixen said. One pilot in an antique F-16. How is that supposed to... You didn't see her fly. Morrison's voice cut through the doubt. I did. I was 50 feet off her wing, and I'm telling you, I've never seen anything like it. The precision, the confidence. She flew into our envelope like she owned it, and she did it in a bird that should be in a museum. So what? Cowboy wasn't backing down. She's good. Fine. She's still one jet against what sounds like a whole strike package. Then we make sure she's not alone. Morrison looked around the room. We train, we drill, we get so tight that when this goes down, we operate like one unit. Because yeah, maybe she's the best, but we're pretty damned good too, and if we work together... The door opened. Sarah Chen walked in. The effect was instantaneous. Pilots stood up like they'd been electrocuted. Sarah waved them down impatiently. As you were. She moved to the front of the room and Morrison stepped aside gratefully. I need 20 minutes. Sit down, shut up, and listen. They sat. They shut up. Sarah clicked to a new slide. A satellite image of an island Morrison didn't recognize. This is Kairos Island, officially uninhabited, officially not strategically relevant, officially doesn't even appear on most naval charts. And unofficially, Vixen asked. Unofficially, it's the command node for the attack coming your way, radar installations, missile batteries, electronic warfare platforms that could blind this entire strike group before you even knew you were under attack. She clicked again. 3 years ago, I was inserted onto this island to gather intelligence. I spent 8 months living in caves, dodging patrols, mapping every installation. Alone? Cowboy's skepticism had shifted to something closer to awe. Alone. Sarah's voice was flat, factual. No support, no extraction plan. If I'd been caught, the official position would have been that I was a rogue actor, disavowed, never heard of her. Why? Morrison asked. Why take that risk? Because intelligence said these weapons existed. I needed proof. She clicked through a series of photos, grainy, taken from distance, showing missile launchers and radar arrays. I got it. Then I spent 2 years tracking the money, the suppliers, the logistics network, following the thread back to find out who was funding it. And? Sarah's expression went cold. That's classified. What matters is they're ready. And you're the test case. She advanced to a tactical map. Here's how it'll go down. They'll hit you at night during a scheduled patrol rotation. Start with electronic warfare, jam your radars, spoof your GPS, blind your missile defense systems. You'll be flying dark, dead-reckoning navigation, radar useless. The pilots exchanged nervous glances. Then come the missiles. Not the ones you've trained against. These are smarter, faster. They'll come in low, sea-skimming, using the wave clutter to hide until it's too late. Your phalanx systems will get maybe 2 shots before they're on you. How many missiles? Vixen's voice was tight. Intelligence suggests 12 simultaneous launches, coordinated to hit from multiple vectors, overwhelm your defenses through saturation. 12 missiles? Cowboy's face had gone pale. Against a carrier? Against the carrier, the escort destroyers, and any aircraft caught on deck. Sarah let that sink in. Total estimated casualties: 4,000 dead, another 1,000 wounded. The carrier itself would be disabled, possibly sunk. It would be the worst naval defeat since World War II. The silence in the room was absolute. Morrison found his voice first. How do we stop it? You don't. Sarah clicked to the final slide. A strike plan, coordinates marked in red. I do. But I need you to keep this strike group alive long enough for me to take out their command node. That means flying blind, trusting your instincts, and being better than you've ever been before. When do you launch? Torch asked from the back. 1,800 hours, 3 hours after sunset. I'll fly low under their radar coverage, hit the island before they know I'm there. Alone? Morrison couldn't keep the disbelief out of his voice. Alone. Ma'am, with respect, that's suicide. Even if you get past their defenses, even if you destroy the command node, how do you get out? Sarah's smile was thin and sharp. Who says I get out? The words hung in the air like a death sentence. No. Morrison stood up. No way. You can't just fly a suicide mission and expect us to Lieutenant, sit down. Ma'am, I said sit down. Morrison sat, but his jaw was clenched, his hands balled into fists. Sarah's voice softened slightly. I appreciate the concern. I do. But this is what I've been preparing for, what I've been training for. My bird's modified for this exact scenario. Extra fuel tanks, enhanced countermeasures, weapons loadout designed for precision strikes against hardened targets. And if something goes wrong, Vixen asked quietly, then you better be good enough to survive without me. Sarah looked around the room, meeting each pilot's eyes. I'm not asking you to die for me. I'm asking you to live, to fight, to be so damn good that when those missiles come, you thread every needle, dodge every threat, and keep those 5,000 souls aboard this ship breathing. She clicked off the projector. Now get out there and train like your lives depend on it, because they do. The pilots filed out in silence, but Morrison lingered. Sarah was gathering her materials, moving with that same efficient economy. Captain. Lieutenant, I want to fly your wing. She looked up, evaluating him. Why? Because you're right. It's a suicide mission if you go alone. But with a wingman, with someone to watch your six, to provide support, you'd die. Maybe, maybe not. But I'd rather die trying to help than live knowing I let you go alone. Sarah set down her folder, studying him with those ancient eyes. You've got a girl back home? The question caught him off guard. What? A girlfriend, wife, someone waiting for you? Yeah. Fiancé? Lauren. We're supposed to get married in 6 months. And you're willing to throw that away? Morrison thought about Lauren's laugh, her smile, the way she looked at him like he was worth something. Then he thought about 4,000 people dying because he played it safe. She'd understand. Maybe. Sarah's expression softened. But I can't let you. This isn't about bravery, Lieutenant. It's about capability. That island's defenses are designed to track and kill modern aircraft. Networked systems, electronic signatures, heat blooms. Your Super Hornet lights up like a Christmas tree on their sensors. And your Viper doesn't? My Viper's been modified. Radar-absorbent coating, reduced infrared signature, old-school avionics that don't emit the electronic fingerprints they're looking for. I can slip through. You can't. Then teach me. Give me the knowledge. There's got to be something. There is. Sarah picked up a tablet, tapped through several screens, then handed it to him. These are the electronic warfare profiles they'll use. Study them. Learn the signatures, the patterns, the timing. When they hit you, you'll recognize it, and recognition is half the battle. Morrison took the tablet, scrolling through data that looked like it came from another world. Frequency patterns, jamming protocols, spoof algorithms. This is everything I learned in 3 years, condensed, simplified. It won't make you invincible, but it might keep you alive. Why give this to me? Because if I don't make it back, someone needs to know how they operate. Someone needs to carry the knowledge forward. She held his gaze. That's you now, Lieutenant. Like it or not. The weight of it settled on his shoulders, heavy and irrevocable. One more thing. Sarah pulled a small device from her pocket. Looked like a modified radio beacon. If things go sideways, if I don't make it off that island, this transmits a dead man's switch. Every piece of intelligence I've gathered over 3 years gets uploaded to secure servers worldwide. The whole operation gets exposed. Why not just do that now? Because exposure means political fallout, diplomatic incidents, potential war with whoever's funding this. The brass would rather handle it quietly. Her smile was bitter. Dead heroes are easier to control than living whistleblowers. Morrison looked at the beacon, understanding the calculation. Sarah Chen wasn't just fighting to save the strike group. She was fighting to make sure that if she died, it wouldn't be for nothing. I'll keep them alive, he said. Whatever it takes. I know you will. She patted his shoulder, the gesture almost maternal. Now go. You've got training to run and I've got a strike plan to finalize. Morrison left, tablet clutched in his hand, feeling like he'd just been handed the keys to a kingdom he didn't know how to rule. Behind him, Sarah stood alone in the empty ready room, staring at the blank screen where the island had been. She told them most of the truth, but not the part that mattered most. She wasn't planning to destroy the command node, she was planning to steal it. Commander Robert Mallory sat in his office, staring at the encrypted message on his personal tablet. Asset has returned. Ghost Viper is alive and aboard the Kane. Advise immediate extraction. His hand shook as he read it again. Impossible. Sarah Chen was dead. He'd seen the reports himself, the classified briefings that confirmed her death 3 years ago. Except she wasn't dead. She was here. And if she was here, she knew. The tablet buzzed again. New message. Your daughter is safe. We have her. Continue cooperation or she dies. Send updated patrol schedules immediately. Mallory closed his eyes, feeling the trap close around him. Emily. Sweet, brilliant Emily, who'd wanted to study marine biology and save the oceans. Now she was leverage, a weapon pointed at his heart. He thought about Sarah, about the woman he'd flown with years ago, before she went dark. Sharp, relentless, the kind of person who didn't forgive betrayal. If she knew about him, why hadn't she exposed him yet? Unless she was playing a deeper game. Using him. Feeding him rope to hang himself with. The smart move was to run, disappear. Hope Emily stayed safe and pray Sarah was bluffing, but Mallory had never been good at the smart move. He typed a response. Understood. Will comply. Then he began drafting the patrol schedules, real ones this time, not the false information he suspected Sarah wanted him to send. Because if there was one thing he'd learned in 20 years, it was that the only way out of a trap was through it, and he'd burn every bridge behind him if it meant Emily lived. Night fell across the Pacific like a curtain dropping. In the hangar bay, maintenance crews swarmed Sarah's F-16, making final preparations. Weapons loaded, fuel topped off, every system checked 3 times. Chief Warrant Officer Maria Wrench Santos supervised the work with fierce precision. 30 years as a naval aviation mechanic, and she'd never seen a bird quite like this one. Ma'am? She approached Sarah, who was conducting her own pre-flight inspection. I've got a question about these modifications. Shoot. The engine. It's running 50 degrees cooler than any Viper I've ever worked on. How? Sarah smiled. Trade secret. Learned it from a very creative Russian defector in 2019. You redirect the exhaust flow through secondary baffles, diffuse the heat signature. And it doesn't kill your thrust? Costs me about 8%. But 8% of thrust is worth it when SAMs can't lock on your heat bloom. Wrench nodded slowly, filing the information away. And these pylons, they're not standard hardpoints. Modified for low observable ordnance. The missiles are wrapped in radar-absorbent material, shaped to minimize their signature. Where the hell did you get... Wrench stopped. Never mind. I don't want to know. Smart woman. Sarah patted the aircraft's nose. She'll hold together, right? Ma'am, I've rebuilt her flight control system twice, replaced every hydraulic line, and reinforced the airframe in 6 places. If this bird doesn't hold together, it won't be because of my work. That's what I needed to hear. Admiral Carver approached from across the hangar, his face grave. Captain, a word. They stepped away from the maintenance crews into the shadows between aircraft. Mallory knows, Carver said without preamble. Expected. How'd he react? Sent the patrol schedules I gave him, the real ones, not the false information. Sarah's eyes narrowed. He's playing both sides. Or he's desperate. I got word from our team in Singapore they tried to extract his daughter. She's gone. Vanished from her apartment 6 hours ago. They moved her. Fast, professional. Whoever's running this operation, they're 3 steps ahead. Sarah processed this, running scenarios. Mallory's going to break. Either he runs or he does something stupid. I've got security watching him. He won't get off this ship. You sure about that? Carver wasn't. They both knew it. What's your contingency? Sarah asked. If he runs, we lock down the ship. If he talks, we feed him more false information. If he tries something aggressive, Carver's hand rested on his sidearm. I do what needs to be done. Sarah nodded. In another life, in another war, it might have been enough. But this wasn't another war. This was something newer, uglier, fought in shadows where honor was a liability. I launch in 2 hours, she said. Whatever Mallory's going to do, it'll happen before then. He knows once I'm airborne, his value drops to 0. I'll be ready. Admiral? Sarah's voice dropped, became something personal rather than professional. If I don't make it back, you'll make it back. If I don't, there's a second drive, hidden in my aircraft's avionics bay. It contains everything, every name, every account, every piece of evidence. Give it to someone you trust, someone who'll make sure it sees daylight. Carver met her eyes. You planning on dying, Captain? I'm planning for the possibility. There's a difference. Doesn't feel like it. Sarah's smile was sad, distant. I've been dead for 3 years, Admiral. What's a little longer? She walked back to her aircraft, leaving Carver standing in the shadows, feeling older than his years and twice as tired. Somewhere in the ship, a traitor was making his move. Somewhere in the night, an enemy was preparing to kill thousands. And somewhere between duty and suicide, Sarah Chen was suiting up to face them both alone. The clock ticked down. 60 hours had become 2. And the ocean held its breath. What? Morrison found Torch in the pilot's berthing, studying the tablet Sarah had given him. You should be sleeping, he said. Can't. She looked up, eyes red from strain. Jake, these jamming patterns, they're not just sophisticated, they're predictive. The system learns how we respond and adapts in real time. Meaning? Meaning our standard SEAD tactics won't work. They'll anticipate our countermeasures and adjust faster than we can react. Morrison sat down heavily on the rack across from her. So what do? We don't play their game. We go random, chaotic, human. She tapped the screen. Machines are smart, but they expect logic. They expect doctrine. We give them jazz instead. Jazz? Improvisation, variation. Every pilot responding differently to the same threat. The system can't predict chaos. It was brilliant and terrifying in equal measure. Can you teach the others? I can try, but Jake, she set down the tablet. Even with this knowledge, our odds are bad. Really bad. We're talking about defending against weapons designed by people who've studied every carrier defense system for decades. I know. And Ghost Viper's planning to take out their command node alone, in a bird that's older than some of our pilots, with no backup. I know. It's insane. Yeah. Morrison looked at his hands, thinking about Lauren, about the wedding they'd planned, about the life he might not live to see. But it's also our only shot. Torch was quiet for a moment, then, You trust her? Really trust her? Did he? Morrison thought about the woman who'd flown into their envelope with such precision, who'd stood down an entire strike group with 2 words, who'd spent 3 years alone in hell gathering intelligence to save people she'd never met. Yeah, he said, I do. Then I guess we better not let her down. They spent the next hour drilling through scenarios, building contingencies, preparing for a fight that would test every skill they'd ever learned. Outside, the night deepened. And in the hangar bay, Sarah Chen climbed into her cockpit for what might be the last time, checked her instruments with practiced hands, and whispered a quiet prayer to whatever gods watched over fools and pilots. The war was coming. In 2 hours, it would be here. And somewhere in the dark, between courage and madness, a ghost prepared to fly. The engines spooled up with a sound like distant thunder. Sarah ran through her final checks, hands moving across switches and dials with muscle memory older than conscious thought. Outside the canopy, maintenance crews cleared the blast zone. Wrench gave her a thumbs up from the deck, then stepped back into the shadows. 1,800 hours, right on schedule. Ghost Viper, you are cleared for departure. Godspeed. She didn't bother responding, just released the brakes and let the F-16 roll forward, past rows of Super Hornets that looked impossibly modern next to her weathered bird, past the island where she knew Carver was watching, past the point where courage ended and commitment began. The catapult officer gave the signal. Sarah pushed the throttle to full military power, felt the familiar pressure build in her chest as the shuttle grabbed hold. Then the night exploded. Not from her engines, from somewhere deep in the ship. A massive detonation that shook the entire carrier, sent crew members sprawling, triggered every alarm system simultaneously. Sarah killed her engines instantly, her hand already reaching for the canopy release. Through the chaos and smoke billowing from below decks, she saw it clearly. Mallory had just made his move. Bum! The explosion originated in the Combat Information Center, 3 decks down. Not large enough to cripple the ship, but perfectly placed to create maximum chaos. Emergency lighting flickered on. Damage control teams scrambled through passageways filling with smoke. In CATCC, Hayden grabbed the nearest comm unit as the deck tilted beneath him. All stations, report status. Responses flooded in. Contradictory, panicked, useless. Someone was screaming about fire in CIC. Someone else reported flooding in the forward magazines. Chen's voice cut through, high and sharp with fear about a hull breach that probably wasn't real. Hayden fought through the noise, trying to build a coherent picture. Then Commander Voss burst through the door, her face streaked with soot. CIC is compromised, fire suppression activated, but we've lost primary radar, weapons coordination, half our communications. We're deaf and blind. Casualties? Unknown. Medical's overwhelmed. She grabbed his arm. Marcus, this wasn't an accident. Someone set charges. Multiple locations. Coordinated. Mallory. Had to be. Where is he, Brett? Gone. Security found his office empty, door forced. He's somewhere in the ship. Hayden's mind raced through the implications. Mallory knew the cane like he knew his own hands. Every passageway, every access point, every hiding spot. Finding him in 4,000 compartments would take hours they didn't have. Lock down the ship. No one in or out. Get... The secondary explosion cut him off. This one was bigger. Somewhere aft, near the flight operations spaces. The carrier shuddered, and Hayden felt the deck list 5 degrees to port before the automatic systems compensated. He's destroying our capability to launch aircraft, Voss said. He knows Ghost Viper needs to get airborne. Sarah. She'd been on the catapult when the first blast hit. Hayden grabbed the flight deck radio. Any station, this is CATCC. Status on Ghost Viper? Static. Then Wrench's voice, shaken but functional. She's off the cat. Engine's cold. Aircraft appears undamaged, but we've got debris on the deck. Fires in the catwalk. Can't launch anything until we clear it. Time estimate? 30 minutes minimum, maybe longer. They didn't have 30 minutes. Sarah's strike window was predicated on launching now, hitting the island while their defenses were in the expected posture. Every minute of delay gave the enemy time to adjust, to reinforce, to prepare. The red phone on the bulkhead rang. Hayden snatched it up. CATCC. Commander, it's Admiral Carver. I'm in auxiliary command. Primary CIC is gone. Fire took out too many systems. We're running the ship from here. His voice was tight with barely controlled fury. Mallory did this. The bastard sabotaged us. Yes, sir. We're trying to locate him now. Forget Mallory. He's already served his purpose. Carver paused, and Hayden heard something in the background. Another voice, female, urgent. Captain Chen needs to speak with you, putting her on. The line clicked. Commander Hayden. Sarah's voice was cold, focused, stripped of everything except tactical necessity. Listen carefully. This attack wasn't just sabotage. It was coordination. Mallory timed the explosions to create a a specific pattern of fires and damage that the enemy can see from satellite. He's telling them the strike group is wounded. Then they'll attack now, tonight. Instead of waiting for their planned window, they'll hit us while we're damaged and blind. She paused. I can't launch. Not with the deck compromised, which means I can't take out their command node before they strike. The implications crashed down like a building collapsing. No Ghost Viper meant no strike on the island. No strike meant the missiles would launch. And with the Kane's defensive systems compromised, those missiles would hit. 4,000 dead. Maybe more. What do we do? Hayden's voice came out steadier than he felt. We adapt. Sarah's tone shifted, became something harder. Mallory's still aboard. He'll have a way to communicate with the enemy, probably a backup transmitter hidden somewhere. Find it. Kill the signal. Make them think the sabotage failed. How does that help if you can't launch? It buys time. Maybe an hour. Enough for your crews to clear the deck, for me to get airborne. She paused. And enough for you to do something for me. Name it. Get to the armory. There's a black case marked with my call sign. Inside you'll find a tactical radio and authentication codes. When I'm airborne, I need you on that radio. You're going to be my eyes. Ma'am, I'm CATCC. I can't just... Commander, in about 90 minutes, every pilot in this air wing is going to be flying through the worst electronic warfare environment they've ever faced. They'll need someone who understands what's coming. Someone who's studied the enemy's playbook. Her voice softened slightly. Morrison can lead them in the air, but they need you on the ground, coordinating, adapting, keeping them alive. Can you do that? Hayden thought about his training, his perfect scores, his flawless execution. None of it had prepared him for this, for real combat against an enemy who'd studied them, predicted them, built weapons specifically to kill them. But Sarah was right. He'd spent hours reviewing the intelligence she'd provided. He knew the enemy's patterns, their tactics, their signatures. I can do it. Then move. Clock's ticking. The line went dead. Hayden turned to Voss. I need to go. I'll handle CATCC. She was already moving to his station. Find that transmitter. Stop this bleeding. He ran. 3 decks down, in a maintenance tunnel that didn't appear on most crew manifests, Commander Robert Mallory crouched beside a small device no bigger than a lunchbox. Satellite uplink. Military-grade encryption, completely invisible to the ship's network. His hand shook as he typed the final message. Strike group compromised. CIC destroyed. Radar offline. Recommend immediate attack. He hesitated before hitting send. This was it. The moment where he crossed from cooperation into active treason. Where he became the man who killed thousands of his own people. But Emily's face floated in his mind. Sweet, brilliant Emily. And the message that had come 3 hours ago, continue or she dies. He sent it. The device blinked confirmation. Then began its self-destruct sequence, 30 seconds before it would melt into slag, destroying all evidence. Mallory stood up, feeling hollow and ancient. He'd done it. He'd bought Emily's life with the blood of everyone he'd served with. There was no coming back from this, no redemption, just the hope that maybe, somehow, his daughter would never know. He turned to leave the tunnel and found Sarah Chen standing in the doorway. Impossible. She should have been in the air, should have been miles away, but she was here, blocking the only exit, her face carved from stone. Hello, Bobby? The old nickname hit him like a knife. Bobby. She'd called him that years ago when they'd been friends, before he'd sold out, before she'd died. Except she hadn't died. Sarah, I can explain. Your daughter's safe. The words stopped him cold. Has been for 6 hours. My people extracted her from Singapore before they could touch her. She's on a military transport to Pearl Harbor right now. The world tilted. What? They lied to you, Bobby. Showed you fake proof, fake threats. Emily was never in danger. Sarah's voice was quiet, almost gentle. Which means you just committed treason for nothing. Mallory felt his legs give out. He caught himself against the tunnel wall, his mind reeling. Safe. Emily was safe, had been safe, and he'd just sentenced thousands to die. No. No, I saw the messages, the photos. Fabricated. All of it. Sarah took a step closer. They played you perfectly, found your weakness and exploited it, and you fell for it because you're a father before you're an officer. I never wanted. I know. And the terrible part was she sounded like she meant it. You did what you thought you had to, but Bobby, you should have trusted us, should have come to someone. We could have protected her. I couldn't risk it. And now you've risked everyone else instead. The truth of it crushed down on him. Mallory looked at the melting transmitter, at the destruction he'd enabled, at the ghost he'd betrayed. What happens now? Now you help me fix this. Sarah's voice hardened. That message you sent. How long until they act on it? 90 minutes. Maybe less. They were already prepped for a strike tomorrow night. This just accelerates the timeline. Can you recall it? The transmitter's destroyed. I can't send anything. Then we use it. Sarah pulled out her own communication device. We make them think the sabotage was more successful than it was. Feed them false damage reports. Make them overconfident. They'll still attack. Yes, but they'll attack expecting easy targets, blind ships, grounded aircraft. They won't be ready for what we're actually going to do. Mallory looked at her, seeing the calculation in her eyes. Which is? Win. Sarah extended a hand. Help me, Bobby. It won't erase what you've done, but it might mean your daughter doesn't grow up knowing her father died a traitor. He stared at that hand for a long moment, then took it. Tell me what you need. But 60 feet above them, Morrison sprinted across the damaged flight deck. Fire still burned in the catwalks. Emergency crews fought to clear debris, and his squadron stood beside their aircraft, waiting for orders that made sense. Jake! Torch jogged over, helmet under her arm. What's the call? Are we launching? Not yet. Deck's compromised. Then what are we doing? We're getting ready. He grabbed the nearest crew chief. I need every bird pre-flighted, armed, and ready to launch in 60 minutes. Can you do it? Sir, the deck's... I know the deck's a mess. Work around it. Use the one functioning catapult. Get creative. But in 1 hour, I need to be able to put aircraft in the air. The chief looked at the chaos, at the fires, at the impossible task, then nodded. We'll make it happen, sir. Morrison turned to his pilots. They looked young, scared, trying hard not to show it. Cowboy's jaw was clenched. Vixen kept checking her watch. The Nuggets, the new pilots on their first deployment, looked like they might throw up. Listen up, Morrison said, pitching his voice to cut through the wind and the sirens. You've all heard the rumors by now. We're about to face something bad, something new, something designed to kill us. Silence. Every eye on him. Ghost Viper was supposed to take out their command node before they could launch. But she's still on the deck, which means when they come, we're going to have to beat them the old-fashioned way, by being better. Better at what? Cowboy asked. We don't even know what we're facing. Yes, we do. Torch has been studying their tactics. She's going to brief you on the jamming patterns, the missile profiles, the electronic warfare signatures. Morrison pulled out the tablet Sarah had given him. We've got 1 hour to learn 3 years of enemy doctrine. It's not enough time, but it's what we've got. He handed the tablet to Torch. She took it, swallowed hard, then climbed onto the wing of the nearest Super Hornet so everyone could see her. All right, she began, her voice shaking slightly before steadying. Here's what's going to kill you if you're not ready. For the next 40 minutes, she walked them through hell, showed them the jamming patterns that would blind their radars, explained how the missiles would come in, low, fast, using sea clutter and terrain masking, taught them the electronic signatures to watch for, the tells that would give them maybe 3 seconds of warning. The pilots listened with the intensity of people studying for a final exam where failure meant death. Morrison watched them absorb it, saw the fear transform into focus. They were good pilots. Maybe not legends like Ghost Viper, but good enough to have earned their wings, good enough to have made it this far. He had to believe that would be enough. In the armory, Hayden found the black case exactly where Sarah said it would be. Inside, a tactical radio, authentication codes, and a handwritten note. Commander, you're about to have the worst night of your career. These codes will let you communicate on encrypted channels the enemy can't monitor. Use them to coordinate the defense. Trust your instincts. And remember, The enemy expects doctrine. Give them chaos instead. SC. Hayden pocketed the radio and codes, then headed back topside. The ship was still in chaos, but it was controlled chaos now. Damage control teams had the fires contained. Engineering reported the reactor was stable. Auxiliary systems were coming online. They were wounded, but not dead. He made it to the auxiliary command center where Admiral Carver had set up operations. The space was cramped, packed with officers and equipment salvaged from the destroyed CIC. Screens showed partial radar coverage, patchy communications, half-blind defense systems. Carver saw him enter. "You have the codes?" "Yes, sir." "Good. Because Ghost Viper just got clearance to launch. Deck crews pulled a miracle. 1 catapult's operational. She's wheels up in 10 minutes. What about the enemy attack?" "Still coming. Intelligence intercepts suggest they moved up their timeline. We're looking at inbound missiles in approximately 90 minutes. Carver gestured to a tactical display. "Our defensive systems are at maybe 60%. Radar's spotty. We can't see everything that's coming. Then we need to be where they don't expect us." Carver's eyes narrowed. "Explain." "They're operating on information from Mallory. They think we're blind and stationary. What if we're not?" Hayden moved to the display, his mind racing through tactical scenarios. "We move the strike group, shift position by 20 miles. When their missiles arrive, we're not where they think we are." "And go where?" "We're running a defensive patrol pattern. Any major deviation looks like we're running. Makes them overconfident, makes them think the sabotage worked better than it did." Hayden pulled up the codes Sarah had given him. "But while we're running, we reposition for maximum defensive coverage. Put our escorts in a tighter screen. Get our aircraft up and out, spread across a wider area. Make ourselves a harder target." Carver studied the proposed formation, running calculations. "It could work, but we'd be exposing ourselves during the move. If they have submarines or—" "We're already exposed, sir. At least this way we choose the battlefield." For a long moment, the Admiral said nothing. Then he nodded sharply. "Do it. Send the orders." "And Commander?" He met Hayden's eyes. "You just took tactical command of this strike group's defense. Don't screw it up." "No, sir." Hayden grabbed the tactical comm, feeling the weight of it settle on his shoulders like armor. 5,000 lives. All depending on him making the right calls. He keyed the encrypted channel. "All units, this is Strike Defense Actual. New orders incoming. Stand by for formation change." On the flight deck, Sarah climbed back into her cockpit. The maintenance crews had worked miracles, cleared enough debris, repaired the one functioning catapult, gotten her bird ready to fly. Wrench appeared beside her aircraft one last time. "Ma'am, I've done everything I can, but that portside fuel tank is showing a slow leak. You'll lose maybe 5% of your fuel over the next 3 hours." "Not enough to matter. I'll be back before then." "Or you won't be back at all." Sarah looked down at the chief, saw the concern written across her weathered face. "Take care of my bird if I don't make it. She deserves better than a scrap heap. She deserves her pilot, so don't die, ma'am." "I'll try." The canopy came down. Sarah ran through her final checks, feeling the familiar rhythm calm her racing heart. This was it. 3 years of preparation, 3 years of living in shadows and caves, all coming down to one flight. "Ghost Viper, you are cleared for launch." "Copy. Ghost Viper rolling." The catapult grabbed her aircraft, and for one eternal second, she was suspended between earth and sky, between past and future, between the person she'd been and the mission she'd become. Then the shuttle fired. Physics and engineering conspired to hurl 20,000 pounds of aircraft and ordnance off the deck at 150 miles per hour in less than 3 seconds. Sarah's vision grayed at the edges from the G-force, then cleared as she rotated and climbed, the F-16 leaping into the night like it had been caged too long. Behind her, the carrier fell away. Ahead, darkness and ocean, and an island full of people who wanted her dead. She dropped to 50 feet above the waves, throttled back to cruise speed, and disappeared into the radar clutter. Ghost Viper was airborne, and somewhere ahead in the night, a war was waiting. Morrison watched her go, a single set of lights climbing into darkness before vanishing completely. Then he turned to his squadron. "All right, our turn. Pre-flight complete? Yes, sir. Cowboy's voice. Steady now, focused. Weapons? Hot and ready, Vixen confirmed. Then let's get airborne, because when those missiles come, I want to be between them and this ship. The pilots scattered to their aircraft. Morrison climbed into his Super Hornet, torch settling in behind him. The familiar ritual of strapping in, checking systems, connecting to the aircraft's computers. Jake? Torch's voice through the internal comm. You scared? Terrified. Good. Me too. A pause. But we've got this, right? Morrison thought about Sarah flying alone into hell, about Hayden coordinating a defense with broken systems, about 5,000 people trusting them to keep death away. Yeah, he said, we've got this. The catapult officer gave the signal. Morrison pushed the throttles forward, felt the shuttle grab hold, felt the power build. Then he was flying. One by one, the squadron launched into darkness. 12 Super Hornets spreading out across the night sky, forming a defensive screen around the strike group. They flew in loose formation, radar scanning, weapons ready, every pilot knowing what was coming, but not when. Hayden's voice came through on the encrypted channel. All aircraft, strike defense, new patrol pattern incoming. We're repositioning the strike group. I need you spread in a wider screen, 20-mile radius, stacked altitudes from 5,000 to 20,000 feet. Morrison acknowledged and passed the word. The squadron adjusted, each pilot taking a sector, building a three-dimensional defensive shell. Reaper, this is strike defense. Go ahead. I'm giving you tactical command of the air defense. You've got the training data Ghost Viper provided. When the jamming starts, when our radars go blind, you're the one who'll recognize their signatures first. The responsibility crashed down like a physical weight. Understood. What about Ghost Viper? She's 90 miles out and closing on the target. Radio silent. You won't hear from her until she's hit the objective or... Hayden didn't finish the sentence. Or she's dead. Morrison checked his tactical display. 90 miles. At her cruising speed, Sarah would reach the island in maybe 15 minutes, then another 10 to 15 for the strike itself. Call it 30 minutes total, which meant if the enemy launched their attack now, Sarah wouldn't be there to stop it. All aircraft, maintain patrol. Watch your scopes. First one to detect anything unusual, you sing out. Acknowledgements came back in order. Then silence. They flew through darkness, over an ocean that looked peaceful and empty. The kind of night where you could almost forget about war and weapons and the people trying to kill you. Almost. 200 miles away on Kairos Island, Commander Yuri Volkov stood in the operations center and read the message from their asset for the third time. Strike group compromised. CIC destroyed. Radar offline. Recommend immediate attack. Perfect. Better than perfect. They'd planned to strike tomorrow night when the Americans would be relaxed, confident, following their predictable patrol patterns. But this was a gift. Status on the missile batteries? Armed and ready, Commander. We can launch on your order. Volkov studied the satellite imagery showing the carrier strike group. Infrared signatures indicated fires aboard the carrier. Electronic intelligence showed massive communications disruption. Their agent had delivered exactly as promised. Time to target? 94 minutes at cruise speed. We'll hit them just after midnight local time. Anti-aircraft defenses? Estimated at 60% effectiveness. The carrier's primary radar is offline. Their escorts are functioning, but coordination will be degraded. It was as close to perfect as warfare ever got. 12 advanced cruise missiles against a wounded, blind target. The simulation showed a 93% kill probability. American naval superiority broken in a single night. Begin final launch sequence, Volkov ordered, and monitor for any signs they're aware of our attack. Yes, sir. The technicians began their work, running through checklists that would culminate in fire and death. Volkov watched with professional satisfaction. This was how wars were won now, not through courage or honor, but through intelligence, technology, and the exploitation of weakness. The Americans had grown complacent, relied too heavily on their networks, their systems, their assumptions of technological superiority. Tonight, all of that would burn. A radar technician looked up from his console, frowning. Sir, we're picking up a faint contact. Low altitude, intermittent. Classification? Unknown. Signatures too weak. Could be weather, Could be a bird, could be clutter from the ocean. Keep tracking it. If it strengthens, let me know. Yes, sir. Volkov turned back to the main display, dismissing the contact. They were 8 miles from the nearest landmass, surrounded by ocean, protected by radar arrays that could see a seagull at 50 miles. Nothing could approach undetected. The technician's frown deepened as he watched the intermittent contact skip across his screen, appearing, vanishing, reappearing. Too regular to be weather, too deliberate to be random. Almost like something was flying low enough to hide in the wave clutter, using the ocean itself as camouflage. But that was impossible. No pilot could maintain that altitude in darkness. Not without terrain-following radar. Not without modern navigation systems. The contact blinked on his screen again, 30 miles out now. 29. 28. He opened his mouth to report it, and Sarah Chen, flying her F-16 at 40 feet above the waves, invisible to everything except the most sensitive radar, armed with weapons that shouldn't exist and skills earned through 3 years of impossible missions, crossed inside the outer defense ring. The island's fate was sealed. They just didn't know it yet. 27 miles. Sarah held the F-16 at 35 feet, watching the altimeter like her life depended on it. Because it did. Any higher and she'd light up their radar. Any lower and a rogue wave would turn her into a fireball. The island appeared on her horizon, a dark mass against darker sky, marked only by the faint glow of installation lights they'd tried to hide. She counted them. Matched them to the map burned into her memory from 8 months of surveillance. Nothing had changed. They felt safe here. That was about to end. She pulled back gently on the stick, climbing to 200 feet. Still low enough to avoid most detection, high enough to get a clear picture. Her targeting pod came alive, painting the island in grayscale thermal imagery. There. The command center. Reinforced concrete, buried halfway into the hillside. Radar arrays on the peak. Missile batteries positioned in a textbook defensive grid. And in the harbor, just visible through her optics, a small cargo vessel. Probably supplies. Definitely not military. Sarah marked it mentally, then shifted focus back to the primary targets. The command center had to go first. Cut the head off the snake. Then the radar. Then the missile batteries. Simple plan. Probably wouldn't survive contact with reality. She armed her weapons. 2 GBU-39 small-diameter bombs, laser-guided, designed for precision strikes against hardened targets. Not a lot of payload, but enough if she put them exactly where they needed to go. And if anyone could do that, it was her. Sarah climbed to 500 feet, still masked by the terrain, and began her attack run. On the island, the radar technician's frown had become genuine concern. Sir, that contact is still there. 25 miles out, definitely not weather. Volkov moved to his station. Show me. The technician highlighted the intermittent blip. It's maintaining a steady bearing toward us, speed approximately 420 knots. Altitude, he paused, checking his instruments. That can't be right. What can't be right? It's showing below 100 feet. Nothing flies that low at that speed. Not at night. Not without crashing. Unless you'd spent 3 years doing exactly that, Sarah thought, from her cockpit 23 miles away. Unless you'd learned to read the ocean like a book, to feel every shift in the wind, to become part of the machine you flew. Volkov stared at the contact. Classification? Small, single engine, matches profile for an F-16. That's impossible. The nearest American F-16 base is Misawa. That's over 2,000 miles away. I'm just reporting what I'm seeing, sir. Volkov's mind raced. An F-16 made no sense. The carrier didn't operate Vipers. The Air Force had no reason to be in this sector. And even if they did, approaching at wave-top altitude was suicide-level tactics. Unless. Alert all defenses, weapons free. If that contact gets within 10 miles, shoot it down. Sir, we're still 40 minutes from missile launch. If we activate our defense systems now, do it! The command center erupted into controlled chaos. Radar systems powered up to full strength. SAM batteries traversed toward the incoming contact. Early warning networks that had been running in passive mode went active, flooding the sky with electronic noise. And 20 miles out, Sarah's threat receiver lit up like a Christmas tree. There you are, she whispered. She'd been flying dark. No radar, no electronic emissions, nothing that would give her away. But now they were shouting their positions to anyone listening. Every radar installation, every missile battery, every defensive system, all marked, all targeted. Sarah broke left, climbing hard, using the terrain to mask her approach. Her hands moved across the weapons panel, designating targets with practiced speed. The threat receiver screamed warnings, S-15 Gauntlet missiles, radar-guided, deadly if they got a lock. They were tracking, acquiring, nearly there. She punched out chaff and flares, broke right, dove back toward the deck. The threat receiver wailed. Missiles launching, 2 of them. No, 3. Sarah's world narrowed to pure reaction. Roll left, climb, release more chaff, brake hard right. The first missile flashed past, missing by maybe 20 feet. The second lost its lock on the chaff cloud. The third kept coming. 5 seconds to impact. 4. She inverted the F-16, pulled toward the ocean, felt the airframe groan under the stress. The missile tried to follow, couldn't compensate fast enough for the radical maneuver, plunged into the sea 100 yards behind her. Sarah rolled upright, climbed back to attack altitude, and there it was. The command center, exposed and vulnerable, thinking their missiles would save them. Ghost Viper to strike defense. I'm engaged. They know I'm here. Hayden's voice came back instantly. Copy, Ghost? What's your status? Defensive systems active. Taking SAM fire. Proceeding with attack. Can you abort? Negative. I'm committed. She was. The second she'd crossed into their engagement zones, there was no turning back. Forward was the only option. Forward through the fire and the missiles and the certainty that one mistake would end her. Sarah lined up on the command center, designating the target with her laser. The GBU-39 armed, tone in her headset confirming lock. Rifle. The bomb dropped away. Smart fins adjusting its trajectory, guiding it toward the hardened concrete structure where Volkov and his team thought they were safe. More missiles launching. 4 this time. The island's defenders throwing everything at her. Sarah didn't wait to see the impact. She broke hard left, dropped to the deck, punched out more countermeasures. Flew like her aircraft was an extension of her body, every input instinctive, every correction measured in milliseconds. The missiles chased, got close, closer. And behind her, the GBU-39 punched through 12 feet of reinforced concrete and detonated inside the command center. Volkov heard the shriek of the incoming weapon half a second before the world exploded. The blast wave threw him across the room. Lights died. Structural concrete rained down. Someone was screaming. Someone else wasn't anymore. Emergency lighting flickered on, revealing devastation. Half the command center was gone, just gone, open to the night sky. Bodies lay scattered. Equipment sparked and burned. Volkov pulled himself up, ears ringing, tasting blood. The main tactical display was destroyed. Communications were dead. But the launch systems. Status on the missiles! A technician, bleeding from a head wound, checked a backup panel. Launch sequence interrupted. We need to restart from initialization. How long? 20 minutes, maybe longer. 20 minutes. 20 minutes for that single aircraft to circle back and finish what it started. Get those systems online, now. Volkov grabbed the emergency radio. All batteries, engage hostile aircraft. Priority target. Bring it down. But even as he gave the order, he knew from the precision of that strike, from the tactics that had let one pilot slip through their defenses, from the sheer audacity of attacking alone. This wasn't some lucky shot. This was someone who'd been planning this for years, someone who knew their systems better than they did. Sarah pulled up from her attack run, still alive, somehow still alive, and assessed the damage. The command center was burning. Good, but not enough. She came around for another pass, targeting the primary radar installation. This one would be harder. The missiles had her profile now, knew her tactics. They'd be ready. She climbed to 3,000 feet, gaining altitude for the dive bomb run. Her threat receiver showed 6 missiles tracking her. 6. They were desperate now, throwing everything into the sky. Ghost Viper, strike defense. We're picking up massive radar emissions from your location. Are you? I'm fine. Stay on the defensive plan. How long until their attack window? Hayden's pause told her everything. We're picking up pre-launch indicators from the island. They're trying to fire despite the damage. Estimate 20 minutes until missiles are airborne. 20 minutes. She needed to finish this in 20 minutes, or everything she'd done was pointless. Sarah rolled inverted and dove, accelerating toward terminal velocity. The missiles climbed to meet her. Math and physics and fate converging at a single point in space and time. At the last possible second, she pulled out of the dive, released her second GBU-39 toward the radar installation, and broke so hard the G-forces grayed her vision. The missiles followed, locked, tracking, closing. Sarah flew through the kind of violent aerobatics that would tear a modern fighter apart. But her F-16 was old-school tough, built when aircraft were machines first and computers second. It bent and twisted and screamed in protest, but held together. The second bomb hit home. The radar installation erupted in a cascade of secondary explosions as fuel and electronics ignited, and one of the tracking missiles lost its lock, confused by the sudden electromagnetic chaos. 5 left. Sarah dove again, this time toward the ocean, pushing her aging jet to speeds that made the control surfaces vibrate. The missiles followed. 400 knots, 450, 500. The ocean rushed up to meet her. She pulled up at 50 feet, the F-16 shuddering under the stress. 3 missiles couldn't make the turn, impacted the water in geysers of spray and fire. 2 remained. Her threat receiver went solid tone. Lock. Impact imminent. Sarah's hand moved to the countermeasures panel. Empty. She'd exhausted her chaff and flares, no tricks left, just speed and skill, and the hope that she could outfly physics. The first missile closed to 100 yards. 50. 20. Sarah cut her throttle, popped the speed brakes, let the missile overshoot. It flashed past her canopy close enough to see the rivets, detonated a quarter-mile ahead. The second missile didn't fall for it. Stayed locked. Adjusted. 10 seconds to impact. Sarah's eyes flicked to her weapon inventory. 1 Sidewinder remaining. Air-to-air missile. Useless against ground targets. Unless... She selected the Sidewinder, slaved it to her radar, pointed the nose of her aircraft directly at the incoming SAM. Come on, you bastard! 5 seconds. The Sidewinder's seeker head locked onto the missile's hot exhaust. 3 seconds. Sarah fired. The Sidewinder leaped off the rail, accelerating faster than the SAM could react. Closed the distance in a heartbeat. Hit the incoming missile head-on. Both weapons disintegrated in a fireball that Sarah flew through, feeling the shockwave rock her aircraft, praying nothing vital had been damaged. She emerged on the other side, checked her instruments. Engine good. Controls responsive. Airframe stressed but intact. Alive. Still impossibly alive. Sarah climbed back to altitude and surveyed the island. Command center destroyed. Primary radar gone. Missile batteries firing blind now, lobbing ordnance into the sky with no guidance. But the launch systems for their cruise missiles, those were still intact. Hardened silos built to survive bombing. She had no weapons left that could touch them. 20 minutes, Hayden had said. Less now, maybe 15. Time for Plan B. Sarah keyed her radio. Strike defense, Ghost Viper. Primary objectives complete, but they still have launch capability. I'm going to need you to do something for me. Name it. When their missiles launch, I need you to track them. Give me headings and altitudes. A pause. Ghost, what are you planning? I'm going hunting. Aboard the Cane, Hayden stared at his tactical display, trying to process what Sarah was suggesting. Hunting cruise missiles. In an F-16 with no weapons. Ma'am, you're Winchester. You can't... I still have guns, 20mm cannon, 500 rounds. Against missiles traveling at 600 miles per hour? I've done harder. Her voice was calm, matter of fact. Just give me the tracks. I'll do the rest. Hayden looked at Admiral Carver, who'd been listening to the exchange. The Admiral's face was grim. She's serious, Carver said. It's impossible. So was penetrating that island's defenses alone. So was surviving their missile envelope. So was everything else she's done tonight. Carver leaned over the tactical display. Commander, that woman has been impossible for 3 years. Don't bet against her now. Hayden nodded slowly, then keyed the encrypted channel. Understood, Ghost. Stand by for targeting data when they launch. Copy. Ghost Viper standing by. The channel went quiet. Hayden turned to his team. I need our best radar operators on tracking. The second those cruise missiles launch, I want trajectories, speed, altitude, everything. Sir, one of the techs spoke up. Even if we track them perfectly, she can't intercept all 12. Then we intercept the ones she can't. Hayden pulled up the strike group's defensive posture. Morrison's squadron is airborne. We've got missile defense systems on the escorts. And we've got the element of surprise. They think we're blind and wounded. Are we going to be enough? We're going to have to be. Morrison heard the exchange on the encrypted channel and felt his stomach drop. Ghost Viper was going to try to shoot down cruise missiles with a gun. With a gun. She's insane, Cowboy said over the squadron frequency. She's desperate, Torch corrected. There's a difference. Is there? Vixen's voice. Because from where I'm sitting, both end with all of us dead. Morrison cut through the chatter. Knock it off. We've got our orders. Form defensive screen. Stay alert for incoming missiles. When they come, we engage. With what? Cowboy again. Our missiles are designed for aircraft, not cruise missiles flying at wave top. Then we get creative. We use guns if we have to. We ram them if we must. But we keep those missiles away from this strike group. Silence on the channel. Then, one by one, acknowledgements. Reaper, this is strike defense. Go ahead. Satellite imagery shows increased activity at the launch sites. Estimate missiles airborne in 10 minutes. Copy. All aircraft, you heard that. 10 minutes. Use the time. Run your checklists. Remember your training. And when this starts, remember what Torch taught you. They expect doctrine. Give them jazz. Morrison checked his own systems. Weapons armed. Radar online. His WSO running targeting solutions on scenarios that shouldn't be possible. Jake? Torch's voice, private channel. Lauren, know you love her? The question caught him off guard. What? Your fiancée, does she know? Yeah. Why? Just making sure, in case we don't. We're going to make it, Torch. You promise? Morrison thought about lying, about giving her false hope, then decided she deserved better. I promise I'll try like hell. That good enough? A soft laugh. Yeah, that works. Asint. On Kairos Island, Volkov stood in what remained of the command center, watching technicians work frantically to restore the launch systems. Half his team was dead or wounded. His primary systems were destroyed, but the missiles remained intact in their hardened silos. That was enough. Launch sequence restored, a technician reported. We can fire manually. Do it! All missiles, full salvo. Sir, without guidance from the command center, they have onboard navigation, pre-programmed coordinates. They'll find the target. Volkov's voice was cold, hard. Fire. The technician hesitated only a moment, then entered the launch codes. Deep beneath the island, in silos designed to survive nuclear strikes, 12 cruise missiles armed themselves. Hatches opened. Boosters ignited. One by one, they screamed into the night sky. Strike defense, we have launches. Multiple launches from the island. Hayden's world compressed to the tactical display. 12 missiles, just as Sarah had predicted. They climbed rapidly, then leveled off at 50 feet above the ocean, racing toward the strike group at 600 miles per hour. Ghost Viper, strike defense. Missiles are airborne, transmitting track data now. Copy. I have them. 12 missiles bearing 045 spread across a 20-mile front. Confirmed. Time to strike group is 90 minutes at current speed. Then I've got 90 minutes to work. Stand by. Hayden watched Sarah's icon on the display, saw her turn toward the incoming threat, accelerating to intercept. 1 aircraft against 12 missiles. The math didn't work. Couldn't work. But Sarah had never been good at accepting what was possible. She saw the first missile on her radar at 40 miles. Low and fast, exactly as she'd predicted. She dove to match its altitude, throttled up to full military power, positioned herself on an intercept course. The geometry was brutal. The missile was traveling at 600 miles per hour. She was doing maybe 550. Closing speed was over 1,000 miles per hour. She'd have maybe 2 seconds when the missile was in gun range. 2 seconds to track, aim, and fire with enough accuracy to hit a target less than 20 feet long. Sarah's training from another lifetime kicked in. Her hands settled on the controls with absolute calm. Her breathing slowed. The world outside the canopy faded to background noise. At 5 miles, she armed the cannon. The M61 Vulcan. 6 barrels, 6,000 rounds per minute when firing, except she only had 500 rounds total. Had to make every burst count. 3 miles. The missile appeared on her targeting display. 2 miles. She could see it now, a dark shape against the darker ocean. 1 mile. Sarah pulled the trigger. The Vulcan roared to life. Tracers lanced out across the night. She walked the fire onto the target, feeling the aircraft shudder from the recoil. The missile flew straight through her fire stream. Shells struck home. The warhead detonated in a flash of orange and white. 1 down. Strike defense, splash 1 missile, 11 remaining. Copy, Ghost. Next target bearing 052, range 38 miles. Sarah banked hard, lined up on the new heading, checked her ammunition counter. 450 rounds left. 11 missiles. The math still didn't work. She'd just have to be better. Morrison watched the tactical display, saw 1 missile icon disappear, felt a surge of hope that died when he counted the remaining threats. All aircraft, missiles are 40 miles out and closing. We're cleared to engage. The squadron spread out, each pilot lining up on a different target, but the missiles were fast, flying low, using the ocean as cover. Their radars struggled to maintain lock. Reaper, Cowboy, I can't get a solid track. This bastard's dancing through my radar. Use your eyes. Get visual, get close. Use guns if you have to. Copy. Morrison lined up on his own target, dove to wavetop altitude, pushed his Super Hornet to match the missile's speed. There, a dark shape against the water, impossibly fast, heading straight for the carrier. He triggered a missile. The Amram leaped off the rail, accelerated, lost lock, veered off into the ocean. Damn it! Reaper, their electronic countermeasures are active, Torch called out. They're spoofing our radar. We need to get inside the ECM envelope. Inside meant close. Dangerously close. Morrison pushed the throttles forward, closed to within a mile. The cruise missile seemed to sense his presence, began evasive maneuvers, weaving, climbing, diving, programmed with tactics designed to defeat fighters. Torch, give me a firing solution. Working on it. Got it. 30 degrees right, led by 2 mils. Morrison adjusted, fired his cannon. Tracers reached out, most missed, but a few struck home, tearing into the missile's body. It kept flying. Hit confirmed, but no splash. This thing's armored. Then hit it again. He fired another burst. More hits. The missile wobbled, lost altitude, tried to recover. Didn't make it. Impacted the ocean in a plume of spray. Splash 1, Morrison called out. 10 remaining. Across the defensive screen, other pilots were engaging. Vixen got a kill with her guns. Cowboy rammed one, literally flew his Super Hornet into the missile, destroying both in a fireball that made Morrison's heart stop until he heard Cowboy eject successfully. 8 missiles left, but they were getting through, coming closer to the strike group. Sarah lined up her 4th intercept, fired, missed. The missile jinked at the last second, evaded her fire stream. She cursed, banked hard, came around for another pass. Ammunition was critical now. She'd burned through 250 rounds with only 3 kills. Had to be smarter. Had to be perfect. The 4th missile appeared ahead of her. She didn't fire immediately. Waited. Let it get closer. Closer. 500 yards. 400. 300. She pulled the trigger, fired a 3-second burst. Every round on target. The missile disintegrated. 4 down. 8 remaining. But the others had spread out now, using the full width of their approach corridor. She couldn't intercept them all. Not enough time, not enough ammunition. Strike defense, Ghost Viper. I can take 2, maybe 3 more. The rest are going to get through. Understood. We're engaging with ship-based systems. Aboard the escorts, SM-2 missiles launched from vertical tubes, arced upward, dove back down toward the incoming threats. Point defense guns traversed and fired, filling the air with tungsten. 2 more cruise missiles died. Then 3. 3 remaining. And they were inside the defensive perimeter now, racing toward the carrier at wave-top altitude, almost impossible to track against the sea clutter. Morrison saw them on his display, too close to the strike group for missile intercepts. He rolled inverted, dove, came screaming in from above. "All aircraft, guns only! Danger close to friendly ships!" He lined up on the lead missile, fired, missed, adjusted, fired again, hit. The missile wobbled but kept flying. Vixen came in from the side, raked the same target with her cannon. The missile's fuel tank ruptured. Fire bloomed. It tumbled into the ocean a mile from the nearest destroyer. 2 left, and they were seconds from impact. Hayden watched it unfold on his screens, helpless to do more than coordinate. The missiles were inside minimum engagement range for most systems. The carrier's phalanx CIWS guns opened up, last-ditch defense, filling the sky with depleted uranium shells. One missile flew into the wall of fire and exploded. The final missile kept coming, 5 seconds to impact. 4. Hayden knew with absolute certainty that it was going to hit. Knew that in seconds, the carrier would be torn open, thousands would die. Everything would end in fire and chaos. 3 seconds. Sarah Chen's voice cut through the radio, calm as a prayer. "I'm on it." She'd come in from high altitude, diving nearly vertical, using every bit of speed her aging F-16 could give her. Below her, the cruise missile raced toward the carrier, toward the deck packed with aircraft and crew, toward catastrophe. Sarah wasn't trying to shoot it. She was trying to catch it. 2 seconds. She aligned herself directly above the missile, matched its trajectory, its speed. Flew formation with a machine designed to kill, both of them moving at 600 miles per hour toward the same target. 1 second. Sarah rolled inverted, dropped down until her aircraft was 20 feet above the missile, close enough to see every rivet, every panel. Then she fired her cannon straight down. The rounds tore through the missile's guidance system, through its fuel tank, through the warhead itself. It detonated below her aircraft, the blast wave lifting the F-16 like a toy, throwing it across the sky. Sarah fought for control, lost it, regained it. The stick felt wrong, mushy. Something was damaged. Her engine gauges showed thermal warnings, hydraulic pressure dropping, but the missile was dead, and the carrier was safe. "Strike defense, Ghost Viper, splash, splash the last missile." Her voice was strained, breathing heavy. "All targets destroyed." "Copy, Ghost." What's your status?" "I'm not good. Aircraft damaged, engines running rough, hydraulics failing. I need to get on deck before this thing quits on me." "Roger. Charlie now, straight to the boat. We'll clear the pattern." Sarah turned toward the carrier, 40 miles away, trying not to think about how badly her bird was hurt. The F-16 that had carried her through 3 years of impossible missions, that had held together through everything, was finally giving up. She just needed it to last 10 more minutes. The engine temperature climbed into the red. A new warning light appeared. Fire detection. 8 minutes. The flight controls were getting heavier, harder to move. The hydraulic system was dying, forcing her to muscle the aircraft through the sky. 6 minutes. She could see the carrier now, a lit rectangle on the dark ocean. Beautiful. Home. 4 minutes. The engine coughed. RPMs dropped. Temperature spiked. "Strike defense, I'm losing the engine." "May have to eject." "Negative, Ghost, stay with it. We've got crash crews standing by." Sarah clenched her jaw, willing the machine to hold together. Not for her sake, she'd survived worse, but for what this aircraft represented. 3 years of her life, every mission, every flight, it deserved to come home. 2 minutes. The fire warning went solid. Flames were eating through the engine compartment. Any second, something critical would fail and the whole thing would turn into a fireball. 1 minute. The carrier loomed ahead, deck cleared, wires ready, paddles on his platform, watching her approach. "Ghost Viper, call the ball." She tried to respond, but her radio was dead. Electrical failure spreading through the aircraft. No matter. She knew what to do. Sarah lined up on the center line, judged the glide slope by eye, corrected for the crosswind. The F-16 wanted to roll left. She held it level through pure force of will and strength that shouldn't have existed in her arms. 50 feet, 30. 10. The wheels touched deck. The hook caught the wire. The Viper stopped in a shower of sparks and burning hydraulic fluid. Sarah popped the canopy and climbed out, dropping to the deck just as the engine finally gave up and died. Behind her, the F-16 that had carried her through hell settled into silence. She stood there for a moment, hand on the aircraft's nose, feeling the heat radiating from the dying engine. "Thank you," she whispered. Then she turned and walked toward the island, where Admiral Carver was waiting. The walk from the flight deck felt longer than any mission she'd ever flown. Crew members lined the passageways, standing at attention as Sarah passed. She didn't acknowledge them, didn't have the energy. Her hands were shaking from adrenaline crash. Her flight suit was soaked with sweat, and her left shoulder throbbed where she'd wrenched it fighting the dying controls, but she was alive. More importantly, so were they. Admiral Carver waited in the flag briefing room, alone except for Commander Voss and a security detail standing outside. The door closed behind Sarah with a sound like a prison cell. "Sit down before you fall down," Carver said. Sarah dropped into a chair, feeling every one of her 38 years. "The strike group?" "Intact. 0 casualties from the missile attack. We've got damage reports from the sabotage. 12 dead, 37 wounded. But we're operational." Carver slid a bottle of water across the table. "You saved 5,000 lives tonight, Captain." "And killed how many on that island?" "Unknown. Satellite imagery shows extensive damage to the military installations. The cargo ship in the harbor evacuated personnel before you struck. Looks like maybe 40 to 60 casualties total, all combatants." Sarah nodded, too tired to feel anything about it. 40 people dead by her hand. Not the first time, wouldn't be the last. But each one still counted, still added weight to a scale she carried in her chest. "What about Mallory?" Carver's expression hardened. "In custody, confined to quarters under armed guard. He's cooperating now, gave us everything. The financial network, the communications protocols, the identity of 3 other compromised personnel in the Pacific Fleet." "3 others?" "Smaller fish, analysts, logistics officers, people with access to useful intelligence, but not the complete picture Mallory had." Carver leaned back. "The thing is, Sarah, Bobby's telling the truth about his daughter. They really did threaten her, showed him fabricated evidence of kidnapping. He thought he was trading secrets for her life." "I know. Does that change anything?" Sarah looked at the Admiral, saw the question beneath the question. Was Mallory a traitor or a father? Could someone be both? Did understanding the why make the what forgivable? "He still made the choice," she said quietly. "Chose his daughter over thousands of other people's daughters, sons, mothers, fathers. I understand it, but understanding doesn't excuse it." "What would you have done?" "I don't know, and I hope I never have to find out." Sarah opened the water bottle, took a long drink. "What happens to him now?" "Court-martial, treason charges. He'll spend the rest of his life in prison." Carver paused. "Unless you want to speak on his behalf." "Why would I do that?" "Because you're the only one who really understands what he went through, the pressure, the impossible choices. 3 years alone, Sarah. 3 years of making decisions that could get people killed. You know what that does to a person." She did. She knew better than anyone. "I'll testify to the facts," Sarah said. "What he did, why he did it. But I won't ask for leniency. He chose his path. Now he lives with it." Carver nodded slowly. "Fair enough." He pulled out a folder, slid it across the table. "This is your after-action report. I need you to review it, sign it, and then it gets sealed at a classification level that'll make it invisible for the next 50 years. Sarah opened the folder, scanned the contents. The report was clinical, factual, stripped of everything that made the mission real. Nothing about flying at wave-top altitude in darkness. Nothing about the fear or the adrenaline or the certain knowledge that she was probably going to die. Just facts. Target destroyed. Mission accomplished. Asset recovered. "Asset," she said. "That's what I am? After 3 years? That's what the paperwork says. But Sarah," Carver leaned forward, his voice dropping. "I know what you did. Not just tonight, but for 3 years, living in caves, dodging patrols, gathering intelligence that saved this entire fleet. You're not an asset. You're a hero. Heroes get parades. I get classified. Because what you know, what you've seen, what you've done, it can't be public. The political fallout alone would destabilize half the Pacific Rim. The weapons programs you exposed, the networks you mapped. If that goes public, it starts a war. A real one. Sarah signed the report without reading the rest. Then I guess I stay dead. You don't have to. There are options. We can bring you back officially, give you a new command, a desk job somewhere you can... No. The word hung in the air, absolute. No? Carver repeated. I've been someone else for 3 years, Admiral. Lived under aliases, changed my face, my voice, my entire existence. I don't know how to be Sarah Chen anymore. Don't know if she even exists. She stood up, feeling the weight of exhaustion trying to drag her back down. What I do know is that there are more operations like this, more weapons being developed, more threats no one's tracking, and I'm the only one crazy enough to go find them. You're talking about going back out there. I'm talking about finishing what I started. The island was one node in a bigger network. I've got leads on 2 more facilities, maybe 3. Someone needs to map them, photograph them, gather evidence so when the time comes we can take them all down at once. Carver studied her for a long moment. You're asking to stay dead. I'm asking for what I'm good at. Alone again. No backup. No support. I had backup tonight. Had an entire strike group watching my 6, even if they didn't know it. Sarah met his eyes. I work better alone, Admiral. Always have. That's not healthy. Probably not, but it's effective. Carver sighed, the sound of a man watching someone he cared about walk into darkness. If I approve this, and it's a big if, you'd report directly to PAYCOM's special programs. Black budget, 0 oversight, complete operational autonomy. You'd be hunting shadows again. Good. Shadows are where the real threats hide. And if you get caught, if something goes wrong, then I was never there. Same as the last 3 years. Sarah's smile was thin, tired. I'm a ghost, Admiral. Let me do what ghosts do best. What? Morrison found her an hour later, standing on Vulture's Row, watching maintenance crews swarm her destroyed F-16. They were cutting away damaged sections, salvaging what could be saved, preparing to push the rest over the side. They're going to dump her? He asked. Sarah nodded. Too damaged to repair, too classified to leave intact. Better to give her a burial at sea than let her rot in a scrapyard. She deserves better. She deserves to rest. We gave her one last mission. She delivered. Now she gets to sleep. Morrison watched the crew's work, thinking about his own aircraft, about the near misses tonight, about Cowboy ejecting and being recovered by the SAR Hilo. Everyone had made it back. Barely, but they'd made it. I wanted to thank you, he said, for the intelligence, for the training, for saving all our asses. You saved yourselves. I just gave you the tools. That's not how it felt up there. When the jamming hit, when our radars went dead, we were blind. But we remembered what you taught us. The signatures, the patterns, the tells. He turned to look at her. We went jazz, random, chaotic, human, and it worked. Sarah smiled, genuine this time. Good. That means you learned. Will you teach us more? There's got to be other threats out there, other tactics. I won't be here. The words cut through his hope. What? I'm leaving, soon, going back out to finish mapping the network. She saw his expression, continued before he could argue. This is what I do, Lieutenant, what I'm built for, and there are more threats coming. Someone needs to find them before they find you. Then take me with you, or Torch, or Vixen. Hell, take the whole squadron. You don't have to do this alone. Yes, I do. Because the places I'm going, the things I'm doing, they require someone who's already lost everything. Someone who has nothing left to risk. She looked at him, really looked at him. You've got Lauren, a wedding in 6 months, a life waiting for you when this deployment ends. Don't throw that away for someone else's war. It's not someone else's war if we're all in danger. True, but there are different ways to fight. Sarah pulled something from her pocket, a small drive identical to the one she'd given Carver. This contains everything I've learned, every tactic, every technique, every piece of intelligence. Share it with your squadron, train them, make them better than they are. That's how you fight this war. Morrison took the drive, felt the weight of responsibility that came with it. And you? I keep hunting, keep gathering intelligence, keep stopping the threats before they become attacks. She turned back to watch her F-16, saw them removing the last salvageable components. Someone has to live in the dark so others can live in the light. That's my role now. It's a lonely one. Yes, but I've gotten used to lonely. They stood in silence, watching the ocean, watching the sun begin to rise over the Pacific. Golden light painted the waves, turned the carrier deck orange and red. Beautiful, peaceful, a lie that would last until the next threat emerged. Morrison broke the silence first. When you're out there, when things get bad, remember you've got 5,000 people who owe you their lives. If you ever need us, we'll come running. Sarah's throat tightened. She didn't trust herself to speak, so she just nodded. They watched together as the maintenance crews finished their work and pushed the F-16 to the deck edge. A brief ceremony, respect for a machine that had served beyond its limits. Then they rolled it over the side. The Viper hit the water with a splash, floated for a moment, then began to sink. Sarah watched until it disappeared beneath the waves, taking 3 years of her life with it. "Goodbye, old friend," she whispered. 48 hours later, Sarah stood in Admiral Carver's office for the last time. She was wearing civilian clothes, jeans, a plain shirt, nothing that would identify her as military. Her hair was different, dyed darker. Contact lenses changed her eye color, already becoming someone else. "Your orders," Carver said, handing her a sealed envelope. "Your contact protocol is inside. You'll report every 60 days via dead drop. If you miss a check-in, we assume you're compromised and activate the contingency. Which is, we disavow all knowledge and hope you're skilled enough to escape on your own." Comforting. It's the best I can do. Carver's expression softened. "Sarah, I need you to know what you did these 3 years, what you're about to do again. It matters, even if no one ever knows, even if you spend your whole life in the shadows. It matters." "I know." "Do you? Because I've seen what this kind of work does to people. Seen them lose themselves, forget who they were before the missions, before the aliases, before they became ghosts." He stepped around the desk, faced her directly. "Don't lose yourself out there. Hold on to something, a memory, a person, something that reminds you why you're doing this." Sarah thought about the faces she'd seen on the flight deck. Young pilots, crew members, people living their lives, loving their families, trusting that someone was keeping them safe. "I won't forget," she said. "Promise me." "I promise." Carver nodded, then did something unexpected. He hugged her. Brief, paternal, the gesture of a man who knew he might never see her again. "Stay alive, Captain. That's an order." "I'll do my best, sir." She left the office, walked through the ship one last time, emerged onto the flight deck where a helicopter waited. No ceremony, no farewell. Just a quiet departure in the pre-dawn darkness. The helo lifted off, climbed into the sky, and Sarah watched the carrier fall away below her. 5,000 souls, safe because of choices she'd made, sacrifices she'd accepted. Worth it, all of it worth it. The aircraft turned toward the horizon, toward the next mission, toward a future written in shadows and silence. And Sarah Chen, who'd been dead for 3 years and would stay dead for years more, settled into her seat and became someone else. 6 months later, on a beach in California, Morrison stood at the altar watching Lauren walk toward him. She was beautiful. The ceremony was perfect. His squadron had flown cross-country to be there. Torch as a groomsman, Cowboy embarrassing himself during the toast, Vixen catching the bouquet. Perfect day, perfect moment. But during the reception, Morrison found himself checking his phone, scanning the crowd, looking for a face he knew wouldn't be there. "Jake?" Lauren touched his arm. "You okay?" "Yeah, sorry, just thinking about someone." "Someone important?" "Someone who saved my life, all our lives, and then disappeared." Lauren followed his gaze across the reception, saw the squadron standing together, laughing, alive. "Did you ever thank them?" "Tried to, don't think she heard it." Morrison pulled his wife, close. "But I'm going to live the life she saved. Live it well, make it count. That's the best thank you I can give." Sounds like she'd appreciate that. I hope so. Across the world, in a city whose name she couldn't share, operating under an identity that would evaporate in another month, Sarah Chen sat in a small apartment and reviewed satellite imagery. Another facility, Another weapons program, another threat that needed mapping. Her phone buzzed with an encrypted message. She opened it. A photo. Morrison and Lauren at their wedding. The whole squadron around them, smiling, alive, living. The message below was simple. Thank you. We're living the lives you saved. Reaper. Sarah stared at the photo for a long time, feeling something crack in the armor she'd built around herself. Then she saved it. The first personal item she'd kept in 3 years. Proof that the work mattered, that the sacrifices meant something, that somewhere in the world, people were living and loving because she'd chosen to live in darkness. She closed the laptop, finished her coffee, and began preparing for the next insertion. The work never stopped. The threats never rested, and neither would she. But tonight, for just a moment, Sarah Chen allowed herself to remember what it felt like to be part of something larger than missions and intelligence and war. She remembered what it felt like to matter. Aboard the USS Theodore Kane, now deployed to a different ocean on a different mission, Commander Marcus Hayden stood in CATCC and watched aircraft launch into sunset. The systems were repaired. The crew was trained. The ship was whole again. On his console, hidden from official notice, was a small photograph. Sarah Chen, in flight gear, standing beside her F-16, taken from security footage the day she'd arrived. Hayden had printed it, laminated it, kept it as a reminder that sometimes the greatest warriors were the ones no one saw, that sometimes the most important victories were the ones never acknowledged, that sometimes the people who saved you were ghosts who disappeared before you could say thank you. Commander? Chen, the radar operator still jumpy, called out. Unknown contact, bearing 270, not responding to hails. Hayden's hand moved to the comm panel, muscle memory from that morning 6 months ago. Then he paused, looked at the radar screen. Commercial airliner, transponder delay, nothing threatening. Confirm identity and maintain watch, he said, but stand down from alert. Because he'd learned something that morning when a ghost had come home. He'd learned that not every unknown was a threat, that sometimes the things that scared you were the things trying to save you. He'd learned to trust his training, trust his instincts, and trust that somewhere in the darkness, someone was watching over them, even if that someone was a ghost. Years later, when the threats Sarah had mapped were finally neutralized in coordinated strikes across 3 continents, when the weapons programs were shut down and the networks dismantled, the operation was classified at levels that made it invisible to history. No medals were awarded, no recognition given. The pilots who'd fought that night in the Pacific received their routine commendations and moved on with their careers. The crew of the Kane told stories in the wardrooms, but the stories became legends, and the legends became myths, and eventually no one was quite sure what had really happened. Only a small handful knew the truth. Knew about the woman who'd spent years in darkness, who'd flown impossible missions, who'd saved thousands of lives and asked for nothing in return except the chance to do it again. Admiral Carver, retired now, kept a folder in his personal safe. Inside were reports that officially didn't exist, photographs that were never taken, records of a pilot who died years ago and kept dying over and over in different cities under different names. Sometimes he opened the folder and wondered if she was still out there. Still hunting. Still fighting the wars no one else could see. He liked to think she was. Liked to imagine that somewhere in the world, Sarah Chen was keeping watch over people who'd never know her name. That was what heroes did, after all. Not the ones in the parades and the ceremonies, but the real ones. The ones who chose to stand in darkness so others could live in light. The ones who became ghosts so others could be real. Morrison, now a squadron commander himself, told his pilots about that night, stripped of classified details, reduced to its essential lesson, that courage wasn't about being fearless. It was about being terrified and doing it anyway, about standing between danger and the people you'd sworn to protect, and that sometimes the greatest strength came from admitting you didn't have all the answers, but trusting in the people who did. Hayden, promoted to captain of his own carrier, kept that photograph on every ship he commanded. When young officers asked about it, he told them it was a reminder. Of what, sir? That everyone on this ship is someone's child, someone's parent, someone's friend, and it's our job to make sure they get home. He'd look at the photo, at the woman who'd understood that better than anyone. We're not fighting for countries or politics or glory. We're fighting for the 5,000 souls who trust us to keep them alive. And somewhere, in a city that didn't appear on any mission report, under a name that would change in another month, a woman who'd been dead for years read the reports and knew her work mattered. Not because anyone thanked her, not because anyone knew, but because somewhere in the world people were living who would have died. Families were whole who would have been broken. Lives were being lived that would have been extinguished. That was enough. That had always been enough. Sarah Chen closed her laptop, finished her coffee, and began preparing for the next mission. The work never stopped, the threats never rested, and neither would she, because someone had to live in the shadows. Someone had to be the ghost. And she'd chosen that path the moment she'd first strapped into an aircraft and sworn to protect people who would never know her name. It was a lonely path, but it was hers, and she walked it without regret, without hesitation, without looking back. Because in the end, the greatest warriors weren't the ones who sought glory. They were the ones who sought nothing at all except the quiet satisfaction of knowing they'd made a difference. Even if that difference was invisible. Even if that difference was forgotten. Even if that difference lived only in the hearts of 5,000 people who woke up one morning, kissed their families, and never knew how close they'd come to never waking up at all. That was the legacy of Ghost Viper, not in medals or monuments or official records, but in lives lived, in families loved, in futures that existed because someone chose to fight in the darkness. And somewhere in that darkness, a ghost smiled. Sometimes the greatest heroes are the ones whose names we never learn, the ones who choose service over recognition, duty over glory, and the lives of strangers over their own comfort. They walk in shadows so we can live in light. They become ghosts so we can be real. And though history may never remember them, their impact echoes in every life they saved, every family they kept whole, every future they protected. They are the silent guardians, the invisible warriors, and their sacrifice matters more than words can ever express.